Welcome to Lifted, elevating the game. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to the first interview of our Lifted podcast collaboration with Orlando Union for the Tournament of Champions. I want to thank you all, first of all, for the support that you guys gave us on the first podcast. I didn't think it would go that well. I didn't think, again, like I said, I didn't think anybody would want to hear me for an hour, but I got your messages. I saw everything. I saw all the likes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And there are some stats I wanted to share just to kind of, again, thank all the people that are listening. We had over 350 downloads, so that's a big deal. Spotify, number one. So thank you to all the people that listened on Spotify. And for just a breakdown, for breakdown purposes, 175 people in the United States, 85 in Canada, 70 in the United Kingdom, 10 in Dubai, 6 in Germany. I don't know who's listening to me in Germany, but thank you. 3 in Tanzania, 2 in Spain, 2 in DR, 2 in Australia, 2 in Ireland, 2 in Denmark, 3 in Netherlands. Maybe it's the World Cup. Maybe people are all over the place. And then 1 in Belgium. So thank you to all those people that are listening. I really do appreciate it. I want to thank my friends who supported, reposted, just got the word out there. I want to thank my family, my siblings who were pushing this hard, Safe and Shaista. I want to thank my wife who I went through all of my questions and my for every interview I've ever done. Also the editing part and just my intros and all that. She was a part of all of that. So I want to thank Sep and I want to thank my cousin Turab Kermally, obviously a big supporter of mine, and then obviously my guest today, which I will introduce in a bit. But before I do want to talk about a couple of things. This is the first interview, and every interview after this, I will have a little bit of news for you. I will have something to tell you about the tournament. What I can't say today, I will give a little tease. The tournament is coming. It's only 4 weeks away, a little less than that. And there are some new rules that are going to be in place. And they're exciting rules. I think they're rules that will change the game. I think it'll differentiate the Orlando tournament from other tournaments. And maybe it's a rule that may continue. There are a lot of new awards that are in place to award people throughout the tournament, not just the basic awards, but there are new awards. The Orlando Union Committee has done a really good job in, trying to, show value in certain things and support the youth and all these people, that are coming into the game now after a couple of years off. Another thing about the Orlando tournament and the Tournament of Champions is that we will be partnering up with an organization up in Canada called Nasiha. It's a mental health helpline and so much more than that. It's actually a faith-based, Islamically centered nonprofit organization. It's based in Canada. It provides mental health support to the community in North America. They offer free telephone, text, and web-based therapy for individuals that are struggling with various mental health issues and related challenges. They also do education and outreach events to advocate on issues for importance, the local and broader community across all of North America. So we are partnering up with them, and we want to, again, pretty much make people aware that there is help out there. If there's anything you ever need, and especially in a community where some of this stuff may be taboo, I think Nasiha comes in huge, and I've seen them do wonders. Actually, our family member Mohsen Kermally is a very big plays a very, very big role and part in that organization. And I would love for you guys to go check out the website and please do, if you can, donate in any way possible. At the same token, before I do continue, I want to tell you all you can find us on Apple Podcasts under Lifted. You can find us on Spotify under Lifted. You can find us on Instagram, Lifted_podcast. And you can also find us on YouTube. Just type in Lifted, the podcast, which hopefully this will be our first YouTube upload. And you'll be able to both find this interview on audio in the podcast section and video as well. Before any further ado, I want to finally introduce my first guest. It's an honor. I think a long time coming. And I have an introduction for him it took me a while, but I want to illustrious, charismatic, and my personal nickname for him is the Muslim Mamba, right? I was going to call him the Maple Mamba because he is from Canada, but newsflash, he's not from Canada. He's actually American. He was born in Allentown. So I don't think a lot of people know that, but Turab Kermally, my guest today, born in Allentown but raised in Toronto. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for taking the time out and being my first guest. It's honestly an honor and a privilege.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it.
Everyone knows that me and him are cousins. Everyone knows that we grew up together. We've done a lot together, but we've also been rivals. So, the first interview that was done with Turab, which was done in the New York Union in tournament, I believe 2018. He was our first interview then also. And Muhammad Jiraj did that interview. And I was like, you know what? There was so much left untold. And I feel like this podcast is for that, is to bring out certain things. And again, we talked about mental health. We talked about a bunch of things that, our community, all that stuff. Volleyball plays a big role. And I think today we'll touch on all those topics. And I'm so glad to have you on. But before we continue, you and I have been in this game for a long time. We've lost a lot of people along the way. And it wouldn't be right if we didn't continue without thinking of them and reciting Surah Fatiha for them. So for Faisal Banji, for Amin Tagaro, for Fazl, for Rocky, Shiraz Nur Muhammad, for Uskurli, our boy, and of course for Johnny Bojani, who isn't here 6 years later, but was 6 years ago when Orlando won their last championship. So if we can recite one Surah Fatiha for them before we continue, that would be great. All right, here we go. So this may be a long one, everyone. I try to keep everything under an hour and a half, but there's a lot to unfold here. So you can listen to it in parts. But Turab Kermally, United Stars. I mean, it's been a long time, a long journey for you. And we'll start from the beginning. Tell me where you, because I know for sure it's not Allentown, but tell me where you truly first witnessed the game of volleyball.
So I remember coming to, of course, no matter what, it was with my dad.
Yeah.
Like Friday nights was just a thing here, right? I was probably maybe, I don't know, 10, 11, maybe 9. I can't remember, but I know that, there was like, he used to take me in practices in spurts. So like, I wouldn't get to go every Friday because I think I'd be killing his vibe.
Yeah.
Go every Friday, right?
Yeah,
but, so maybe once every 3 weeks I'd get to go, right? When I was much younger. So I'd go with him, I'd watch it, I'd see it. I was in love with that game from day one, with the game from day one. Like all I wanted to do was play volleyball. So, I would say probably when I was 10, 11, United Stars practices at that time were just something different. And yeah, that's where I saw the game. My dad used to take me and I used to be his tag along.
When you used to go, would you just sit there? Or were you playing side net? Or were you like how we all started? Or did you look at the sport in the beginning and go, you know what? I don't think I'm going to play this.
No. So when I first used to go, I just used to sit there. Right.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, this was like pre Oscar Uncle taking over captainship at that time. So like this is like I think the captain at that time was probably Noshat Teja, if I can remember.
Yeah,
or like,
yeah. Probably I think so.
Somewhere along those lines, right? So like the kids weren't introduced yet. So we just go and hang out. After volleyball was pizza. So,
yeah.
That was the thing, right? I'm sure you remember.
What was the name? Abruzzo's, right?
Abruzzo. Abruzzo came after. Before that, it was a Pizza Hut somewhere. In Richmond Hill, I believe. Yeah. So that was where we used to go, and we'd all meet up there. So this was like, we'd just be sitting. I think, we weren't playing.
Well, you go into a time in volleyball where, no offense to our uncles and my father, but they weren't the most athletically gifted people, right? Yeah. So did you think that when you were watching them that you'd want to play the sport? Was there a passion right off the bat, or was it like, maybe I'll play this sometime down the line, but I just, it's not the volleyball of today.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a guy who always wanted to mimic my dad. So it could be like his handwriting, it could be anything. I saw him playing. My dad wasn't crazy about volleyball. He was crazy about the social aspect of volleyball, right? But whatever my dad did, I wanted to do. So, that was like my segue in, So yeah, I thought I would play. I didn't know if I was going to be able to play, but I thought I would play.
When you started, when did you start playing? What age did you really get a shot to start playing? And what was that like?
I actually remember my first practice. it's actually mad funny because, I played a lot of basketball growing up. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
remember,
Coach of
right? So like,
soldiers. Yeah, of course.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
that's really where I was like trying, like I guess you could say that that's where I was not excelling, but that's where I was comfortable
Yeah,
playing
yeah, yeah.
basketball,
Of
right?
course, of course. Yeah.
So, we would get around, play basketball, and when we were coming to volleyball practice, we would just be shooting the volleyball in a basketball hoop. That's what
Yeah,
we would be doing and
yeah,
watching our dads or whatever.
yeah.
So I think one of the weeks, my dad's like, "Look, kids are starting to play." He gave me his knee pads, and they were like these huge,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
knee
Like
pads, right?
those
I remember them.
Mizuno ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But they
yeah,
were like white, torn up, and they were like blue lettering, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I had this big United Stars, like a big ass T-shirt with the United Stars logo through,
Yeah,
and I came through, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get to play, right?
right.
And you get pushed to the side corner of the. There was two netties, and I was like
Yeah,
the third or maybe the fourth, even.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
in the
yeah,
corner of the net, just doing this the whole time,
yeah.
right? Just watching. And that was my first practice.
When did you officially get a chance to start actually playing out? And then when you started playing out, I'm assuming
Hmm.
it was the front line somewhere.
Hmm.
What was that like? Because a lot of us start in net and then go, a lot of
Yeah,
kids quit. They go, it's not for me. And some
yeah,
kids get to come play out and go, this is gonna be my future, right? Like
yeah,
when
yeah,
did you
yeah.
realize like, okay, this is gonna be it for me?
So I honestly, I gotta see how kids got involved. Actually, is
Uh-huh.
there was a shakeup in United Stars, right? Like,
Okay.
Oscar came, was approached by the older vets of United Stars and said,
Yeah.
okay, you got to take over this club, right? And
Okay.
he did.
Okay.
So when he did, I think his vision was, let's bring in kids, right?
Okay.
So there was a few kids. I can't remember all of them, but
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was like a good group of 15, 20 kids,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
At
yeah,
one
yeah,
point.
yeah.
And he brought us in, and I think I was probably like 12 or 13, where I got to play in the front line, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And he did things that we're kind of doing. I've seen Orlando do it or New York do it, where small little like digging drills and like how to
Yes.
hold your hand and all that. So that's when I started like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
The ball wasn't hurting my hand anymore. The first time
Yeah,
you hit a
yeah,
ball,
yeah,
it hurts
yeah,
your
yeah,
hand,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You get
yeah,
that
yeah.
little dent
You
on
go,
your
yeah,
on your
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I see my son, like I'm trying to throw the ball at my son, and I see
Yeah,
him
it's
like,
hurting
ow,
you.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so that kind of, that's when I realized, like around 12 to 4, around that age, 12, 13, where yeah, okay, I'll be able to play this game.
When you started playing, you were playing for United
Mhm.
Stars. When
Yeah.
did you really start going to other practices or traveling around Toronto, or like, were you just stars for a long time?
I was stars. It was tough, man. I remember, like, Toronto was tough to play volleyball in,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I could
Like
imagine.
very, very tough. First of all, I mean, there was no powerhouse Orlando Union at that time. There was no
Yeah,
powerhouse New York at that time.
yeah,
All
yeah,
volleyball was here, right? You
yeah,
had
yeah,
the East, the Toronto East, Toronto North. You had Arcays, you had
yeah,
Jaffreys, you had Stars,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, the teams that I've just listed, if you go back in that time, that was your final three or
Oh,
final four
100%.
or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
final two
They were
every
dominating the
time, in
sport.
and out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So now, as a 15-year-old kid, to get in somewhere, it was tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I also wasn't the most, I guess, light kid, respected kid, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call
yeah,
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Of course, of course. Yeah,
I was somebody who,
we had a chip on
always
our
got,
shoulder.
yeah, and I got the short end of the stick a lot,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I think, look, that really helped me,
yeah.
right?
Of course. Yeah,
Built me up. But yeah, I got the short end of the stick. So I wasn't invited to many practices,
yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, I'll tell you something. I went to my first time I got invited to an outside practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like out of Stars, right? It was
Okay.
my
Yeah.
brother Conan who called me and said, look, because Conan was getting invited. Like, he was already a good netty.
Right, 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 right,
Right?
right.
And there was someone else as well who was getting invited, who was already a good player,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, and then there was Nadim as well, who was getting invited because he was already a good player, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was me who was like kind of tippy toeing around.
Yep.
So I remember one day, it was like I was in high school, or no, I was in elementary, or I can't remember. But anyhow, nonetheless, Conan calls me and he's like, "Listen, there's a practice. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
say the team name out
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. Of
respect,
course, of course. Yeah, yeah,
but there's a practice. Come through,
yeah.
right? And they're playing 5-on-5 usually, but
Okay.
they're short a player."
Perfect.
Said, okay, cool. This is it.
My chance.
So yeah, I got a call at like 2, right, or 3. Call my house line. My mom
Yeah,
answers,
yeah,
and then she gives me the
yeah,
phone.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm like, okay, cool. Now I gotta, like, I'm making a plan to, like, tell my
yeah,
dad that I'm going to practice, and like
yeah.
how, and I need like $10 for a drink.
Ex- Exactly.
drinks after volleyball.
Yeah.
I go to my dad. I'm like, listen, Bubba, I got invited.
Yeah.
So can I get like $5 and $10 and go?
Yeah.
So he's like, all right, go, no problem.
Yeah.
So it was nice because I lived in the complex, right? And
Yeah.
the thing is that Richmond Hill, or the Richmond Hill High School where they were playing, was right around the corner.
Right
So
around
I
the
could
corner.
walk there,
Yeah.
right? So I walked there, and
And
no,
just,
sorry.
I don't mean to cut you off, but
Mhm.
at that time, from what I remember, again, I used to come visit you all the time. Growing up in that area, I mean, it wasn't like, I think your dad was happy to hear that you were going to volleyball, because there was a
Yeah.
lot of other influences, right? That could have easily strayed you away.
Yeah. And we were like, I'll tell you, I have brotherhoods from that area that have been
Yeah.
lifelong, and everyone's done so well. But the complex is where a lot of people get their start, right? So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
and then unfortunately, people, I'm not gonna say people look down at you, but
No, I
unfortunately,
know what you mean. Of course. Yeah.
some people were, judgy, right?
Yes.
So
Naturally.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Of course. Yeah.
it's just a judge thing, right? And maybe we were reading into it wrong. Maybe we had insecurities. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's just what it felt like. So, anyways, nonetheless, I go to this practice. I get there. I'm like 15, 14, maybe 13. I can't remember the age, man. But I remember walking into the gym, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get to play.
It's my shot. Yeah.
It's my shot, and I didn't get to play. And
Okay.
I didn't get to play because in that moment I had to make a decision. Am I going to pay for the practice, or am I
Mhm.
gonna go with my friends after to get Gatorade, right?
Okay.
And I was like, I was young, so I was like, I wasn't gonna trade the going after practice for
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
right? But some
But
one
you're saying that the guy who was in charge didn't allow you to play.
yeah, because I had to make, like,
I had
basically it was a pay to play
It was, yeah,
situation,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So he was like, look, no, sorry, right? And I
Wow.
sat on that bench for 2 hours.
Wow.
And I remember, this is like a point in my life I'll probably never forget,
Of
to be
course.
honest with you,
Yeah.
because it hurt my soul, right? And I
Mhm.
remember watching, and I'm like, wow, he actually didn't let me play,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, which is shocking.
Yeah.
But
So I watched, and I was like, all right, cool. At that time, I'm not gonna lie, I was young. Probably shed a few tears that day. Probably cried to
yeah,
my dad and
of
my mom,
course. Of course. Of
but
course.
all good.
But
It did happen. Yeah.
and I think what you can take away from that story is, number one, that's what a lot of people, and back in those days went through. Nowadays, you don't see that, right? And I think that's because we've seen it happen to us, so we won't do that to the new generation, right? There are some kids
Without a
that
doubt.
want to play, right? But they want to come and have a good time, and they don't even have cash that day, or whatever it is, right? It could be anything, right? And we're never going to take that away from them, right? And I think that you can only grow from that. But you know what? That probably made you even hungrier, right? And you wanted to come back and one day be able to allow youth to come to your practice. That's a crazy story, to be honest. But
Yeah.
it just shows you what volleyball was back then.
100%.
You get to finally come up with the guys like Conan, like Nads, like all these guys. Where do you get the official come up and starts? You started, I believe, on the C team,
Yeah.
one tournament, and then
Yeah.
you get your nod on B.
Yeah.
When and I believe you're playing front line
Yeah.
throughout this tournament?
I was playing front left.
Front left, right?
Yeah.
From where do you at that point get your nod on A to come on United Stars A? Was there ever a time that you jumped onto United Stars A before you left?
Yeah. So it was in 2005 or 4 in New York.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we were practicing, and we were going through the training, the whole process, right? It was an hour training or half an hour training before actual
Right.
volleyball practice.
Right.
And we were getting watched, right? It was
Mhm.
like selection for real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Kind of like what you guys have in Orlando, New York, and
Yeah.
etc., right?
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
had that here. So it was selection, and I got the call.
Mhm.
So on that first A team that I got onto was Mahmoud Rajani, myself, Konain, Nadim, Arif, Nazrali,
Wow. Okay.
Oscar Uncle, and Shabir Kara.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And there was
Wow.
another Netty with Konain. I can't remember. I mean, it was either Muzammil
Uh-huh.
Hemani, or it was Mazair
Isma?
Ismail. Yeah,
Oh,
one of
no
the
way.
two.
Okay.
I can't remember, but one of the two.
Yeah. So you get to play front left that tournament.
Yeah.
At any point after that tournament,
Yeah.
what happened in that tournament? Where did you guys quarters?
We got to the finals. No, we got to the finals.
Wow, you got to the finals in your first tournament on A.
Yeah,
At that time,
We
United
got,
Stars, it was
yeah,
awesome.
We got to the finals, and we played Jaffrey's, and I think we lost in the game of 3 or best of 2 or something like that. I can't remember, but yeah.
Nice. Okay, so now at that point, did you know, like, or did you have an inkling inside you that I want to be a center? I don't want to play front left. Or did you think like, hey, yeah, if my career is front left, great, I'll just play here all year, all
Nah,
life.
nah, nah. I didn't know that I wanted to play center. We were at that time, we were just fighting for front center, bro.
Yeah,
We were just trying to be in front of these guys. Like I
yeah,
wanted to be
yeah,
Ari's front center or
yeah,
Oscar
yeah,
Uncle's front center or Hussein Rai's front center, right? Like
yeah.
that was something, you know. So back center was, bro, it wasn't even a thought process, right?
But
It was just
what I'm trying to say is like when you see Arif and you see Hussein Rai,
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna be that guy.
Honestly, bro, and I'm not saying it because he's a part, like he's with me today or I'm with him or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
center that we wanted to be like, and you can ask any kid this. You come to a practice, you watch, you've seen it. You
Yep.
come to a practice, you watch the guy play, you watched him in tournaments in the early days.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, he was very selfless. So he gave up the center position a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The center we wanted to play like was Oscar, hands down, because he had that. So
He
like
had it.
that guy, he motivated us to like, okay, I want to be like, to be honest with you, we wanted to play like him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But so yeah, when I used to watch him play, I'd be like, yeah, and plus, he made it look easier.
He did. He did.
So
He
we're
was a
like,
very
okay, if he
we
could do it, we could do it, kind of
yeah,
thing, you know?
when growing up, Oscar Uncle was always known as a defender, right? And so
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when you saw him in the center, you're like, wait, that doesn't even make sense. But he was so good. He was so good at it that it was like, wow, okay, you can be an all around center and still play well, especially at that time where the game was again it was a float game. It was very slow. It was
yeah. It
fun.
was slower. It was slower for sure.
So
But the vets will tell you themselves, it was much slower. It's
yeah,
completely different than what it is today.
right. Oh, at what when you go to this tournament? Now I know
Yeah.
you've been to tournaments, but now you're on the A team. Now you're growing up and you're like, oh my god, okay, I am going to do something with this sport. Who did you look up to? And Oscar aside, I'm just talking about other teams, other centers out there. Who were you like, I want to mimic my game or be like this person or, want to be that good? Because like, I always say for me, it was Sammy because I saw so much fame around him, quote unquote,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people were just like running to him and be like, yo, I want to watch Sammy play. He could be playing a
Yeah.
C
Yeah.
team and people just wanted to
Yeah.
watch him clobber that C team. Who was that for you?
Oh, I mean, that's a tough one.
Were you
I
just
would
taking
say,
bits and pieces from everyone?
yeah, man. There's like, look, I can only tell you, like, I looked up the guys here, right? Like in Toronto.
Right.
So like, bro, I would watch Rebel play, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
whole different
Different
vibe,
level. Yeah, it's a
right?
different level. Yeah.
And I got to watch another guy play. His name was Duda.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
right? He was amazing, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
And then in Toronto, like I personally didn't get to watch Rye at his prime. I didn't, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. I was gonna ask about that.
by the time we came up, he was already finished. He had
Yeah.
left the game, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Arif was another one, right? Arif
Yeah.
was another
Yeah.
one.
Lefty. Yeah.
Great lefty player,
Yeah.
right? I see a lot of Abbas Ali from Stanmore and Arif Ali
Yeah. I
and
could
Arif,
so
like
see this.
very,
Yeah.
very, very similar.
I could see that. Yeah.
But I would have to say, for me, the only guy I looked up to and said, "Hey, I want to be him. I gotta be him." Is Marhum Faisal. That's it, right?
Yeah. True.
And he was already. I think he was established early. I think, to be honest with you, I think he started winning as a center from like 2008 or something. So like
Right.
that gap was
Right.
very small,
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2005, you play in the A team. You go to the final. 2006, you play a couple of or a tournament or two, and then you leave.
Yeah.
And tell me about why you left. Because again, the way it looks, at least, especially at that time, I'm sure you got a lot of heat for it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But again, going back to that generation, leaving and starting your own team and doing your own thing, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was taboo, and it is
Yep.
taboo today. But there was a
Yeah.
time frame after you did it where it wasn't taboo anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like after you
Yeah.
did it, almost like there was so many other teams,
Yeah.
Haderies, like so many other teams started,
I think Caber was first, right?
Sorry, Caber was first. You're right.
Yeah, and then it was
And
we
then
did it, and then
you did it, and then Haderies did it.
Hadri's did it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like a bunch of teams were doing it at that time, and it became a norm, right? There were multiple teams in cities, but again, taboo, unheard of. You stick with where you are, you figure it out, and you grow in the system, and you go up the system, and then eventually, if you want to be the center, you got to fight to be the center.
Yeah.
Why in 2006 did you leave, and how did that conversation go with your dad?
Yo, it was tough. Look, if you asked me this in 2009,
Yeah,
2010, my answer would have been a lot different,
I'm
right?
sure. I'm sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In 2022,
Yeah, we're talking
um,
15 years ago now. Yeah.
right? My answer is significantly gonna be it's gonna be very positive because you see, at that time I thought, oh my God, I'm not getting a chance, so on and
Yes.
so forth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, being a captain for as many years as I
Yeah.
have and seeing people grow into the game and whatever, I can understand why, right? Look, it got to a point where I was like, all right, I know I can do this, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was younger and I wasn't getting my chance in United Stars for all the right reasons because look, you had you had Arif, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You had some of the best players. Yeah.
You had Oscar, you had some phenomenal back centers, okay?
Exactly.
Who you had Rice still there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you had some phenomenal players, right? And I wasn't gonna get to play.
Yeah.
So I mean, get to play where I wanted to play, or in the
Right.
back line, or
Right.
something. Because
Right.
I moved over from, hey, I want to be a front center to now I want to play in the back line,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Because we started practicing like outdoors, and I started getting comfortable playing back line. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's not gonna happen here.
Yeah.
And to even prove yourself think about it. You got one Friday practice, you got 3 hours,
That's
you
it.
got 4 teams.
Yeah.
And they had like the situation at United Stars is you lose, you're out.
I believe
There's no
it
like
was one court, right?
it was one court,
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
10 or game of 11, and it's if you lose, you're out. So you
Yeah.
have to wait.
Yeah.
And so like to showcase your actual ability it's not
Yeah.
happening.
It's not happening.
And then on a Friday when you come and you suck, you're shitty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nothing you can do,
There's
right?
nothing you can
So
do about it.
it's
Yeah.
like the opportunity to kind of prove yourself is so hard. So it was like, all right, in my head, and now at that time I was like, you know what? These guys aren't giving me my chance. I'm gonna
Yep.
go do my own whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, that conversation was tough for my dad, and I'll tell you, and I say this all the time, like, a father's a father. He's gonna back up his son
100%.
no matter what, right?
100%.
And if I could go, I don't know if knowing what I know today, I don't know if I would have done that. I
Yeah.
put my
True.
dad, I put him in a really awkward spot.
Yeah.
Think about it. All his boys, all his friends are on
Yep.
United Stars,
Yep.
and you got some rebel who's decided to leave,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
make his own team,
Yeah.
right, and go against the grain.
Yeah.
So I made it difficult for my dad, but just like always, he had my back, man. Like I can't, I
Uh,
can't say anything else.
I think at that time in 2006, 7 is when I started playing. And I remember coming to Toronto and you would take me to these stars practices and you were exactly how they're saying. It's 3 hours, there's 4 teams, you lose, you're out, and you're out 2 games in a row. And I remember I played for the first time ever at United Stars practice. And I played side net with Muzamil Hemani. And I remember I played like 2 games that night. And I was like, wow, I was here for 3 hours and I played 2 games. And as a kid, I was like, no, I don't want to do this. But
Yeah,
I can see what you mean. If you don't get your opportunity, or if you squander your opportunity with a bad game or a couple third balls in net or whatever it is, they're gonna look at you like, oh, this kid don't have it, even though
yeah,
like you haven't even had a chance to warm up yet. So
100.
now you leave in 2006 and you create Toronto Union.
Yeah.
And Toronto Union, I believe you had a tough time picking a name for a while, right? You had so many choices.
Thanks to JJ.
Yeah. And you ended up with Toronto Union, which made total sense. Orlando Union, New York Union, Allentown Union, Toronto Union. What was that like? Because I, just like you, at one point left Union because I felt
Yeah,
New York Union because I felt like I think you played a big factor in that because I saw you do it and I was like, hey, if he could do it, I could do it. And I
yeah,
think I did it and I went to Hazelreach for 2 months, but nonetheless, I did it. And I know what you're talking about by putting my father in a tough situation. He was an ex-chairman, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't go to a team that I created.
yeah,
You're going and starting from scratch.
yeah,
What was that entire process like? Because Toronto was the Mecca. Toronto
yeah,
was the 90s were New York. The 2000s
yeah,
was Toronto.
yeah.
You have, like you mentioned, all those teams. Where do you scrap players from?
Bruh, I don't even know, man. I just remember that we were. I remember we were outside a Ramadan tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have just had a sign saying, "Hey, do you want to come play?" Like it
Yeah.
was one of those, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
asking anybody
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody. Like to be quite honest with you, there's people who came to practice, bro. I didn't even know their names, right? I'm
Yeah,
just like,
yeah. You're
hey,
just, yeah.
anyone who wants to play, come
Mhm.
play. Like think about it. I was what? So I'm
You're
just thinking what year.
34
I'm
now.
34. I'm 34. So what is that?
2007, 2006 would be 16 years ago. You'd be 18
Yeah.
years old. Yeah, 18.
Yeah. So I'm 18 years old, right? And I don't know where to buy a volleyball. I don't know where
Yeah,
to get a
yeah, yeah,
net.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know where to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
All this was being done for us,
yeah,
right? So like we don't know. So I remember like the first 3 practices I had, I couldn't get a volleyball.
yeah,
The guy, someone who was like at that time selling volleyballs was out of stock.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyways,
Conveniently, yeah,
yeah, I couldn't get a volleyball, right?
yeah.
So I remember our first 2 practices. I pumped up a soccer ball, right, and that's how we played,
Wow.
right? And a net, but to be honest with you, um, at that time, although I didn't have a net, right? Someone gave me a net,
Wow.
um, and it was a United Stars net. So
Wow.
I left. They gave me the net. They gave me a net to use. So I give them props for that
That's
because
that's yeah, that's nice of them.
yeah.
That's nice of them.
So they gave me a net, but yeah, the ball. I mean, there was a shortage of balls, right? So
Yeah.
I had to like we were using a soccer ball, and but
Ah,
hey, yeah, like starting up, man, it was tough, right? You gotta find players, you gotta arrange practice. But I'll tell you, I say this in my professional life. I say this in my family. I say this, to my brother. I say it to whoever.
yeah.
That process of having to start something, go through with it,
Yep.
refine it,
Yep.
figure out how to make it all work, also helped me in many other aspects of my life.
100%. 100%.
The leadership qualities that I was able to learn from that
Mhm,
situation,
mhm.
I've been able to translate that in many different areas of my life. So I'm actually very thankful to Allah for giving me that opportunity because that's some of the best education I ever had. You know,
Yeah.
it it
No.
it uh it really taught me a lot to kind of to learn how to go with the flow as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. I in 2006 when you leave, do you take Conan with you?
So it's not that I took Conan with me. Me and Conan have a different brotherhood.
Right.
We could not talk for like 9 months,
Yeah.
10 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's busy, but if he needs me, I'm there. If I need him,
Yeah.
he's there.
Of
We just
course.
we
Of
just
course.
grew up that way, right? So it was kind of like he saw I'm leaving,
Yep.
right? And he was like, "Look, I got you," because every center needs a
Needs a
netty.
netty. Yeah.
So I was like, all
100%.
right, if I got those 2 pieces figured
Yeah.
out,
I'll be all right. Yeah. I'll be all right.
I'll be all right,
100%.
So
Yeah.
yeah, he was. I think he made me what I am, and I was able to help him on his journey as well.
Yep.
We both we really we had a great time doing it. I'm sure if he hears this, he'll tell you the same thing. There's no regret.
And I was a part of that actually, so I know for sure firsthand that that it was a good time. When was the tournament that you played with Sammy in that arcade
That
tournament?
that was in 2009.
Okay, so we'll go back and then we'll come back to that tournament because I have a lot to say about that. You do Toronto Union for a year.
Yeah,
You come to Sunshine. Well, not Sunshine, sorry. You come to Champions at that time.
yeah. Which we're
And
playing. Well, that's what we're playing again,
that's
right?
where we're playing again, 15 years
Yeah.
later, right? A lot of things happened that year. You got your start. I got my start. When I say start, I mean like in the game,
Yeah.
on the A teams. Hilal, that KJ, these guys that they got their starts. Uh, you come here with a team, a ragtag team. You were pulling Asif Ismail,
Yeah, yeah,
Jude
yeah, yeah.
Zuhair, and
Yeah, yeah.
there's randoms, right? And you were making it work to create Toronto Union. You then face United Stars, which I
Yeah,
think you marked like on your schedule that if I'm going to do anything, I want this game, right? Every
yeah,
kid coming up wants that, right? That chance to prove themselves.
yeah.
I'm going to let you tell us what happened and and
So,
and what you took away from that experience.
so big shout out to JJ because he set that game up, and I'm being sarcastic as ever. He I love that guy, but so before the tournament started, he's like, "Look, you want to be the main game against United Stars? Now you gotta remember, man, I'm a kid, bro."
Yeah, bro, 18.
I'm like, yeah, man, bring that on,
Hell
right?
yeah, hell yeah.
So he's like, all right, we're gonna shut down the other game. I'm like, bring it on, right?
Yeah.
So they shut down the other games. I think the United Stars at that time was Checher Rizwan, Asghar, Nadim, and I can't remember the rest, to be honest with you, whoever it
Okay.
was. But I
Okay.
remember there were some good players on that team.
Okay.
And then our team, yeah, I mean, you probably remember better than I do, to be quite honest with
Yeah,
you.
I could tell you the
Um,
whole team if you want, but yeah, it was
it's okay. Let's
yeah,
carry on.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so we get on the court, and it's center court,
yeah.
right?
Of course, I
And,
remember. Yeah,
you know, I was just like, I was confident.
yeah.
So we had the serve, lost the serve, 1-love, 5-love, 9-love, 12-love, game
You're
love.
just looking.
I'm like, yo, all right. So now they take a timeout. So look, at that time, taking a timeout during a
Mhm.
lovely was a respectable thing, because you're
Yes,
gonna give a point to the other
yes,
team,
exactly. Yeah, you're
right?
discussing that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Now you got to think about me. I'm 18 or
yeah,
17 or whatever, and I'm sitting there listening to these guys say, "Don't give him a point. Give him a point. Don't give
yeah,
him a point."
yeah,
Right? And
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
now my anger is brewing, right? Because I'm
yeah,
like, "Oh yeah, you want to do this to me,
yeah,
right?"
yeah, 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 yeah.
So they
Naturally.
serve. They serve. Now I don't know if they were gonna give me the point or not. Oscar uncle tells me that he was gonna. Okay, but I don't think so.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so they served high. They did, and I wailed that ball out.
yeah. You didn't want to take it. Yeah, yeah,
I didn't want to take it. Hindsight, I would have taken it today, but anyhow, nonetheless,
yeah.
I wailed that ball out. And then for about 24 hours, man, the only thing I ever heard was lovely, right?
What
Um,
question, going back to the lovely and how lovely is portrayed today than it was back then. Beating someone lovely back then was an accomplishment in a
yeah,
sense that, it didn't matter. It wasn't disrespect. It was, I shut you down, right? I shut you out.
yeah,
Now we give a point, right? Because of the respect factor.
yeah.
Would you, to me, giving the point is more disrespectful, in my opinion. What is
No,
your
I don't.
take on what is your take on that?
I don't think anyone like I said. It depends. Like uh, I think it's all situational, right? Like I can sit here and say I'm gonna give a point, right? And
Yeah.
honestly, 9 out of 10 times that we
You
will,
would. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes, when it's heated and it's competitive, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's
Maybe
a
you
team
wouldn't.
across you,
Yeah.
that you just don't like.
Yeah.
You'll say, "Hey, I'll never do this," but in
Yeah.
the heat of the moment, you
You
never know.
never know.
Me,
Yeah.
me personally, I don't think anyone should do it anymore. Um, just based on the fact that what do you get out of it? You're just someone else is just
That's
gonna
so
make fun of
true.
the other guy,
That's
right?
so true. Yeah.
You
You're
win,
just
you win. Just call it
yeah.
a day and move on, right? So no, I wouldn't do it today.
15-1, 15-1, 16-0 is still a dub, right? Doesn't
Yeah,
matter
yeah.
which way
It
you
don't
go.
matter. 16-15 is still a dub. Who
Yeah,
cares,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just
exactly.
keep it moving.
Yeah, exactly. After that tournament,
Hmm.
you go back to Stars.
Not right after.
It was 2000 and sorry, no, 2007. You do that. 2009, you have like a 2-year run.
Yeah,
When you lose that lovely to Stars,
yeah.
what happens to you after that? Do you sit down when
Oh,
you went back?
nothing.
When you
I,
went
w-
back,
I w-
but when you went back to Toronto, did like you and Conan look at each other like, man, this may not work, or were you like, you know what, nah, we're gonna keep going?
no, we were kids, man. It didn't even cross our mind. We probably cried a little bit in our hotel that night,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah, 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 yeah,
the next day it was over, right?
yeah.
Like no, it didn't put a shot in our armor at all. I think at that time, to be quite honest with you, we didn't even know what the repercussion of losing in Lovely meant, or to
Yeah,
what extent it was, or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
just
yeah.
knew that our boys are making fun of us,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right? So we had to find something else to make fun of them about. That's really what it was at that moment, right?
So you
And there
just
was
kept
no,
chugging along.
yeah, and social media at that time wasn't what it was today,
Yeah,
whereby if you lose
exactly. Yeah,
Lovely, the
yeah.
the
You lose.
every,
Yeah,
every Jamaat knows,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
It wasn't like that,
Uh,
so we were all right.
that's so true. Um, in 2009,
Mhm.
you come back
Yeah.
to Stars. How did that take place? Who brought you back? Who sat you down, and who was like, "Listen, it's time for you to come back home."
I think that was man, I don't remember exactly, because it was a very short stint, right? I think
It was a short.
um I think we were trying to make something work, right? Two Toronto teams. At the end of the day, even like even when, like, as time went by, even when I was playing in tournaments without United Stars, when not being on United Stars, they were still like, my dads and my uncles and people I grew up with. Like, yeah, the first year maybe it was heated, but then it's kind of, the heat slowed
It
down,
kind of
right?
starts
The
to die
the
down. Yeah,
the elders weren't like, oh my God, this guy's done something so bad. It was kind of
yeah,
like, all right, you just sit in the corner, do your thing, and
yeah,
when you're
yeah.
ready, come back. So, I had come back because we had a plan to make something work. There was a lot of good players, because at that time, yeah, there was a lot of good players. So we
Yeah.
thought we could make one, strong team and compete because volleyball started to pick up.
It
So
did. Yeah.
Toronto Union wasn't as strong as it needed to be, and
Yeah.
at that time, Stars were still stronger, but
Yeah.
they needed a bit
They
more.
did. They did. The other teams were getting better. Arcades were winning still.
Yeah,
Jaffrey's
yeah,
were
yeah,
winning still.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
again, you're right. Like basketball was dying out. Volleyball was taking over again.
And
And
Arkies were a problem,
they were.
big problem.
Yeah.
Abbas, Shanu, Irfan, Sajjad,
Yeah.
big problem, right?
Huge. Yeah.
Jaffrey's at that time and still are, but at that time they were a problem.
Yeah.
North, North, right?
Yeah.
Like what
You're
else?
right.
That's it. Stop
That's it.
there, right?
Yeah.
So,
100%. Yeah.
that's what it was. So yeah, we thought we would try
So you
to
came
make it
back,
work.
and I believe Al Wahda was that year.
No, it wasn't Al Wahda. It was the opening of the Jaffrey Islamic Center.
Sorry,
The
yeah. So
JCC.
sorry, the Bathurst. First tournament at Bathurst.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Because I believe you got to the semis.
Semis against Arcades, yeah.
Arcades, right? And the band is back together, right? But now you're a little more established. You're a little older. You've been on your own team. You've been the center, like you've been the focus.
Yeah.
Now the focus shifts. You got to deal, with other players like Oscar, like Nadim, like Conan comes back with you. But you have players that were at Stars. So now you got to all work together, and you almost pulled it through.
Yeah.
Take the L in the semis.
Yeah.
Was that experience what you thought it was going to be, or were you like, you know what, this isn't going to work?
Yeah, I mean, look, you got a bunch of young guys, who all are, confident individuals.
They want to be the best. Yeah.
Can all want to be the best. There's only one ball, man. Right? Like how many hands you gonna share it with?
Exactly.
Right. So like it didn't work out for me in that moment. Right. I was still, and honestly, I was still finding myself. Right. Like and I'm sure everybody can relate. You're not who you were last year.
No.
Right. So,
not.
I was still finding myself. I wasn't right there yet to be part of something. I think I still needed to be on my own. I think I was premature, to be honest with you, right? It was very premature. So yeah, I played one tournament and then I was like, look, and that wasn't like, we didn't even leave in haste. It wasn't even an argument. It was nothing. We were still practicing against one another.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't anything like negative. It was just like, look, it ain't working. Because what was happening is once we were done that, we were kind of like, all right, let's make two teams. One team was all Toronto Union guys. The other team was all. So I was like, "What's the point, right?" Because we weren't able to all play with one another. So I was just like, "Look, I'll move away, but eventually everything will work out."
What at that time, and I would think this is the game of volleyball, and it always is this way. Every 10 years, every 12 years, you get a new crop of centers, a new crop of young kids who want to be something, who are trying to achieve, becoming a center, becoming this, becoming that, making their name, making their mark. At that time, there was a crop. There was yourself, Nadim. There was, JJ. There was Mikey. There was all those guys that were coming up and trying to be something for their respective cities.
Faisal Dirani.
Yeah. Hassan Somji. There was so many guys coming up at that time wanting to be something.
Yeah.
I think the way the game has evolved now is that those centers at that time probably couldn't play on the same team. Those centers today maybe could have, because the game has become so innovative in the way that you utilize players, in the way that you scheme things, right? You see, we all know, like the front line is more in the game now. The back line is more in the game now. There's so much more than just the center nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Back then, though, like you said, there was only one ball, and the game style was one way. It was feed the man in the middle. You defend long enough, that guy will take the points, right? And the quicker you took the points back then, the better you were. And that's what made Faisal so great, right? Because he was taking points like this. Do you think if the game was what it was today, and you were in Stars with Oscar, with Nadim, with all those guys, with Arif, could you have made it work?
First of all, to comment on that, I think the game was like that, where it was like, I thought it was changing, but after watching Stanmore and then even going to the Edmonton thing that I just went to, I think it slowly starting to transition back to what it was. But could we have worked? Maybe. I don't know. I can't answer that question. I wasn't in that situation. All right. Look, you had 5, 6, 10 damn good players, right? I don't think you can make it work today, right? Let alone do it at that time, right?
That's true.
So
Yeah.
you've seen super teams compiled together, right? Super
Yeah.
teams. It's
Yeah.
but again, there's only one ball.
Yeah.
So do I believe a secondary offense, maybe even a third offense can be worked on and be helpful? Of course, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Um, but at that time, yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, you look at Orlando and the way they played the V's in the
Yeah.
2010s, and you look at Kizzer and the way they utilize him, right? Like you look at
Yeah.
all those things, and you
Yeah.
wonder sometimes, right? Like if people were as open minded back then, or didn't,
Yeah.
or saw the future in a way like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe we can try this. You
Yeah.
know, I think
Well,
maybe
that was always the plan. Like Oscar Uncle was trying to do that, right? He was trying to get
everyone
us to
involved.
all play together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
He wasn't trying to create one focal point. He
right,
was trying to in 2000 from 2010 on, that was his plan, right? He saw it.
right.
He's like, look, if I can get all these young guys to play
Yeah,
together, it's gonna
yeah,
work, right?
yeah,
But he tried, right? We even went to a tournament. We came to New York.
yeah,
I think it
yeah.
was the Rayhan Memorial,
Yes,
if I'm
yes,
mistaken, right?
yes, 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 yes,
We
yes.
we did. We tried, right?
Yeah,
But it's just sometimes you rather keep the relationship and not play together because sports can make things a bit toxic. Like you just
right,
it doesn't
right,
it doesn't it doesn't
exactly,
always work, right? So
exactly.
I think we actually did a better thing by being able to all keep our self-respect and not fight
Yeah,
with each other
yeah.
and playing separately. I think that was a better decision for us at that time.
2009, you recreate Toronto Union,
Hmm.
and we go and you go and play in the Arcades tournament, and you call me and you tell me you want to play. And at that time, I started playing in the end of 2007, so I was playing for a year and a half. I was playing front left or something, front right, and I'm like, you want me to play for you? And you're like, yeah, like just come, like check it out. And I was like, damn, this guy must be really desperate if he's calling me. And then I was like, and you were just being, a nice older brother. You're like, hey, just, come. You're not getting a chance there. You're not really going out to tournaments. This is your chance to come. I'll see where I'll put you. I'll give you a shot. And maybe a lot of people don't know this. And I think it's time that it's said. But I truly, truly learned the game of volleyball from you. And there were a lot of people out there that were a part of me learning the game of volleyball. The guys people like Najaf, people like Freddie. I give Mikey, I give all these guys credit, right? But I truly got my first like gig, and it was with you because you were in a position where you could give me the chance, and obviously you had bias towards me. So you're like, come. You were in a
Yeah,
similar
yeah,
position, right? You never got that shot, and you're
yeah,
like,
for
I'm gonna
sure.
give it to you. So I come
Yeah,
with you to this arcade tournament, and I remember we were in the basement of your old house, unfinished basement, little small
yeah,
TV. We're watching Magic Cavaliers like conference finals or something, and we're talking the night before the tournament. Jabber came to stay over, and we're just
yeah,
talking about what was gonna happen the next day. And I
yeah,
I remember we were so hyped because you knew you had to make a splash, and your splash was to call Sammy, and
yeah,
nobody thought that you could pull it off. Nobody
yeah,
thought that you can get him to come. You
yeah,
called him, you got him to come, and we were. I mean, I was 16 years old, like 17 years old. I'm riding high, right? I'm like, yeah, let's go, baby. I'm playing with the guy I've always wanted to play with. And you're like, dude, you know what we're falling, you know what we're gonna face tomorrow, right? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's a tournament. You're like, no, no, no. I don't think you get it. You're like, we're gonna play, CD. We're gonna play Reblo. We're gonna play Tagar. We're gonna play Faisal. We're gonna play, all these other teams, and I believe there's a friends team or something.
friends team. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you're like, there's a lot on the line here, and we got to showcase
Yeah,
it. And I'm sitting here like, bro, this is not what I signed up for. And
yeah,
I remember we'd have, long talks, and that's when I really fell in love with volleyball because, you'd be a Tagaro guy and I'd be a CD guy. And
yeah,
you like the way Tagaro played and it fit your game, and I love the way CD played because he was always wore emotions on his sleeve. He was riled up, and he has had so much swag. Both had swag in their own ways. But we would though that's when we truly like those are the days you remember, right? Like that's what
yeah,
makes you fall in love with this game. We wake up the next day, we go play, and Zolnanji and like I said, Aju and just a random a team put together, and we beat Faisal.
yeah, yeah,
And that is when I think people were like, holy shit, this kid's got something. Like,
yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you, just to touch on that quickly. Big shout out to Aju. Big shout out to Aju,
mm-hmm.
because man,
He
that
was there.
guy
He was there.
always supported. Right? Told me, like, listen, he says some wild shit
Yeah.
sometimes, right? Like
Yeah,
when you
yeah, yeah.
listen to him, you think you're talking to a therapist, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, no, he look, he held it down. and he told me before, any game I ever played, you can beat anybody. So, I started believing it.
Yeah, 100%.
And yeah,
That's what you need.
we did beat Faisal in a round robin game that day for the first time ever.
Yeah.
In time as well.
Yeah.
Right. It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
9-8 or something.
Yeah, we had to last. Yeah.
We just got by, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's and I think where things were, where people looked at it and said, okay, this guy can play.
Yeah.
And honestly, to be frank with you, that's probably the time I looked at myself as well, and I said, okay,
I can
we
hang.
can,
Yeah.
I can hang. Yeah.
I remember playing front left that game, and you turned to me and you go, he's gonna hit the shit out of this ball. You just close your eyes, put your hand, and return it. I don't care if it goes in the net. I don't care where it goes. Just put this ball over. And I remember playing front left, and Jaber at that time was not playing volleyball. He was standing right next to me on the sideline.
Yeah, he hadn't started playing yet, right?
Started, and he was just yelling Zulnanji behind me.
Yeah.
And like Sammy on the right, and you're in the center, and it was just like Jaber's like, just return. I'm just like returning, and I'm like, and I remember we won. And I remember after that, Faisal messaged me on Facebook. At that time, people wrote on your wall, right?
Yeah.
He wrote on my wall, and he's like, "Hey, bud, I don't know. I've never seen you before, but I heard that you're from New York. I hope you do good things, and good luck to you in the future. I know you're trying to be something." And that to me was, again, a turning point. I'm sure in your career, a turning point in my
100%.
career. It made me want to be you. It made me want to be him. It made me want to be Sammy. Like I got to play in that limelight, right? Like you don't get that, and then especially at that time, New York was not in a place, and we weren't even making the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you did that, and then you follow that up with 2009 Allentown, and you go to the finals against Banji and Sumar and those guys.
Yeah.
And like, you're starting to really build something. You go to Queens College in 2010 with the
semis,
the blue shirts and the pink tape, right? And you get to the semis, and then in 2011 you bring our whole entire family, Chacha Rizwan, Chacha Zuli. You're playing with 45-year-old guys.
Yeah, and Queens College is where Irfan got discovered, right?
Yes.
Imran got discovered.
Yes.
Like I saw Irfan play because Oscar Uncle put him into a quarters because Irfan was still United Stars. I was on Union, right?
Yeah.
So
they had a kids team. They had a kids team.
Yeah. No, Irfan was on the A team.
Yeah, but I'm saying like they all grew up in a system, right? Like
They grew up
kind of like similar to yours.
Yes. So I saw Irfan there, and I was like, all right, you know what? He's coming through now, right?
Yeah.
So he came, Imran came, and then Jaber had started playing in 2009, maybe between 2009 and 10.
When he saw us play that tournament in 2009, he's like, I want to play this.
I want to play. Yeah. So, Jaber, and shout out to Jaber, right? Like I mean, if it wasn't for him, like, may God bless everybody with a friend like Jaber and a 100%. Brother like Irfan, because they held it down, right? So when Jaber started learning, because when Jaber first came here, he didn't know how to hold his hands.
Yeah, he didn't. And then in that same 2007 tournament, he won like most upcoming or something, right?
Yeah.
For Team Mandazi or something.
Yeah. So we were super hyped to go to 2011, which was you're talking about the Minnesota tournament.
Sorry, right? Yeah, no. He won in the Al Wahda. He played.
No, I know that. But you're talking about with my dad introduced.
Yeah, 2011 Minnesota semifinals. Yeah,
that's because his mom got sick on the way to the airport. He called me. He's like, I'm out. Right. One of our other players, Zuli Nanji, had an unfortunate heart attack before.
Yeah, I remember.
Right. So I was in the airport. Jaber called me, says I can't make it.
Yeah.
I'm getting engaged that weekend.
Yeah.
Right. Because
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I had we had
in Minnesota.
The day before.
Yeah.
And I told my dad and Rizwan, I'm like, all right, we got to go buy knee pads. You guys got to play.
No. You went back to Judge Zuli and you're like, here's your blue knee pads that you gave me 5 years ago. Put these on, baby, because you got to play.
Yeah. So and we played.
I think you start to realize like who's there for you in times where in volleyball, a lot of people can be against you at one time because unfortunately, and we'll talk more about this, but the volleyball community is very much hearsay, right? Especially at that time it was. And people don't get the full news. And all of a sudden, like you could be, you did nothing wrong, but you have an entire 18 other teams that think you're wrong. And so everyone could just hate on Toronto Union, for example, and just be like, no, you see that kid, we don't see what they're doing. But Jaber, these guys didn't stray away. They just stuck to it. For them, you were always right. And I think that is hard to find, right? Like those guys, and look at where Jabber is today, right? Like people are talking about him as defensive GOAT status, right? So you you see that, and you bring him on. At any point when you were bringing on Irfan and Imran, taking them away from stars in a way, was Oscar Uncle looking at you like, bro, what are you doing, man?
No, I think he expected it because it's my brother,
Yeah.
my brothers, right?
Yeah.
So I think he just expected that to happen, to be quite honest with you.
In 2011, you lose in that semifinal against Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I think probably the most hardiest performance I've ever seen you put on. And mind you, I've seen you play a lot of tournaments. You beat Faisal in a final. Like you would think that would be the hardest. No, but this was so much heart and passion because you were drawing at strings. You were trying to do everything in your manpower to
Yeah.
bring up a couple of youth in your brother and Imran, but at the same time, play with our uncles, and
Yeah.
people applauded you. And I believe you went to 3 games.
3 games, last 2 points.
Last 2 points, right?
Yeah.
After that, to me, is when everyone, in my opinion, was like, this kid's here to stay. This kid is going to do big things. And I remember that was my first tournament as a center, and I played you.
Yeah.
We
went 1-1. You beat us the first
we
game.
split. Yeah, we split.
Yeah.
And I remember beating you, and I walked past the net, and I'm like, man, this seems easy, bro. And you're like, yo, you beat my dad and Chacho Swan. What are you happy about? And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, that was, I think, the beginning of your start and rise in volleyball. 2012 comes, and now again, the talks start happening. Turab's going back to Stars. Stars want Turab back. Blah blah blah. And is it gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen? And you guys all get back together. The band is back, but different this time.
Yeah.
You were given captainship.
Yeah, so that happened from Minnesota. So once we played in Minnesota, my dad introduced one, sat down with me and said, look, you need to come back to Stars. Because you've now hit a maturity point where you'll be able to play with people, right?
Yeah,
like
you've proved it.
you won't be I had gotten a bit more selfless at that time as well in terms of like the game. The mindset was different.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. So in 2012, I had met Oscar Uncle, and he asked me what my vision was. I told it to him, and he said, all right, if this is your vision, let's go. I'll hold your hand through the process. Here's captainship. I'll take vice captainship, and let's bring on the 3 kids. And that time it was Abbas Shivraj, who doesn't get enough credit until
not
this very
even
day.
close to
like
enough credit.
he can play on any A team, in my opinion. He's fantastic, and he has
100%.
more championships than people realize.
Yes, seriously.
And then Irfan, obviously, at that time was already coming up.
Yeah.
And then Imran at that time was coming up. And then there was Jabber, me, and Oscar Uncle. And that was the idea, right? And then Conan.
Sounds great,
and,
right? Like, yeah.
Conan and I don't remember the other.
I don't remember the other Nettie as well.
No.
You start 2012. You have a Ramadan tournament that you lose to Faisal
in the finals. Yeah.
In the finals, you come to Sunshine. Not Sunshine, sorry. At that time, it was the Lake Brantley tournament, I believe.
Yeah.
You play 2012, and you meet Orlando in the finals.
That's where it all begins. Yeah.
And that's where the true essence of somewhat of a rivalry starts. You get into that 2012 final unexpectedly. I don't think people had you there. You lose to Orlando. They win their first. You're starting your dynasty. They're starting their dynasty. And now we're in 2022. We're looking back 10 years of you winning, them winning, you winning, them winning. 2012 happens. And 2012, you also go to San Antonio. And
just before you get to San Antonio, 2012, that the finals, they beat us up, right? That semifinals, with Orlando and Jaffrey's.
Yes.
I tell you, to see, like, I sometimes watch that game, right? Because to see how KJ, Hilal, Imran Jivraj, Arif Ali, JJ, Chiku played, right? I didn't mention someone?
No. Yeah, I was saying JJ.
Yeah. To see the way they play, like JJ had a super performance.
Yeah.
Arif Ali was you could see he could swing.
Yeah.
And then the phenomenon of the front line started.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And you watch and you see that then and now, and like they've kept the same logic,
Crazy. Yeah, it's
right?
crazy.
And I think their netties was Wheezy and his brother,
Yeah,
right?
and no, it was Hussein
Hussein,
Kermally.
Hussein,
Yeah,
Hussein
Tubu's
Kermally.
brother.
So
Yeah,
the semifinals was the true game, right?
yeah,
And watching them beat Jaffrey's, which
yeah,
then went on to be a thing, right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
That 2000, I think 2012 was a big shift in volleyball, right? I
Yes.
think that's where like it all went down, right? So yeah,
That's
I agree. That was crazy.
we talk about bringing, the new core of people coming up and the new like young kids. I think 2012 is when those kids matured enough to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
now
yeah,
we're
yeah,
taking over, right?
yeah,
In 2012, you go to San Antonio,
yeah.
and you go to the semifinals against Faisal, and you're up game
Game
17.
17. Yeah.
It almost at that point becomes real to you that I could beat this guy.
Honestly, bro, we missed something. We were up game 17 against him
Mm-hmm.
in 2010 or 11 somewhere.
Okay.
And I remember vividly watching the clock. It was in Oshawa. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you remember this, or people
Yeah.
will remember.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
watching the clock and being like, okay, there's 32 seconds on that thing.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
up game 17.
Yeah.
I finally went up to the net and I looked at Faisal and I was like, I got you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bro, was I wrong? Because the game ended game 17.
Yeah. The other way around.
He
Yeah.
came back and took 6 points in 30 seconds. So, anyways, the
Yeah.
point is that when we were up game 17 in San Antonio, no, it didn't cross. I didn't think it was real. I knew that, like in my heart, I
You
knew
knew
that
he was
I
gonna make a comeback. Yeah.
know what's about to happen.
We've seen it time and time again. Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did,
Yeah.
and we lost.
You take that, and something happens after that tournament, because in 2013 you show up to New York, but without Oscar.
Yes.
What happens during that time where Oscar decides to leave United Stars?
So, the thing is that he had given up his captainship to us. And now we're not really listening,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
we're kind of like, all
It's
right,
what
man.
every captain who's been there for a while is scared of.
Yeah, it's like now we're not listening, right? So
Yeah.
we think we know,
Yeah,
we don't know,
yeah,
right? So he was like, and rightfully so, he was like, listen, I'm not playing with you kids,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like if you guys are not gonna like follow the game plan,
yeah.
it's not gonna happen. So, and look, we were young,
Yeah, you're still young.
yeah,
This is 9, 10 years ago. You're still 24, 25.
yeah, not even 22, 23, 22, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, look, we could have handled it a lot better, right? But I'll tell you, everyone's passionate about volleyball, and
Yeah.
we were just young and immature, and he was like, look, I'm older, I'm not dealing with this,
Yeah.
I'm going, right? And Abbas went too, and I think it was the best thing because distance, they say distance makes the heart grow fonder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you don't realize, right, at that time, because to be honest with you, like today we're a family, we really
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he's a solid human. And when we were younger, we didn't realize, why is this guy getting mad, right?
Yeah.
Like we're because he used to get mad, right? And
Yeah,
we're like,
yeah, I remember.
why are you getting mad? Like
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
not taking this,
yeah, yeah,
And then he
yeah,
was like, look, if you're not gonna listen, I'm outie, right?
yeah.
So that's what ended up happening. And I'll tell you, that was a good learning lesson for me too. I had a lot of learning lessons.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So have I. So don't worry.
he goes to
Longer journey.
he went to Jaffrey's with the bus, and same thing. We're matching up again, right? We're about to play. This time I'm already playing at a high level.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he's playing at a high level. Jaffrey's were Jaffrey's, right? So we get onto the court, and I had practiced for like 4 weeks hitting that right service side with ferocity, right?
Yes, yes.
And I remember stepping on that court, and the center at that time moved,
Okay.
and Oscar Uncle came into the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And he was playing center against us, and boy,
Oh,
did he put a whooping on us.
yeah.
He the rallies were long, but he won every goddamn point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that 2013, he went back to Jaffrey's.
2013 for you is probably 2013 for any player who went through what you went through would have been the weirdest year ever, because
Yeah.
the ups and downs all in one year.
Yeah.
And we'll start with that 2013 tournament in New York, where now you're Oscar less. You show up, long hair Turab, bandana, right? You have that little bandana thing. You come in with a lot of hype around you, right? Because
Yeah.
people have now seen you in countless finals, semifinals. Like, holy cow, this kid's coming. But now he doesn't have Oscar. What's he gonna do? And
Yeah.
you patch up your team. You take Kazim Walji,
Yeah.
and you make it into the round of 16 against Jaxie,
New
Bieber,
York B.
New
Yes.
York B.
Yes.
One game,
Yes.
which in hindsight was a very bad idea. One
Yeah.
game. And at any point during that game, before like it really seemed realistic, did you think you were going to lose
To who?
to the B team?
No. Not in my wildest dreams.
When it happens, what is your thought process at that point?
I was pissed, man. Like
Yeah.
I was quite
Yeah.
upset, right?
Yeah, I
Because
remember. Yeah.
I couldn't believe that we just got knocked out in a one. I was pissed at New York Union for making a one game quarter
That is
round of
true.
16.
100%. That was a bad idea.
Because like looking back today, I would never put myself in that situation because that's an advantage of any team
Of
that is
course.
not supposed to win because they're
Yeah.
they're gonna close their eyes and swing. But it all worked out because I'm a big believer of in life everybody has their moment,
Yeah.
and that was a good moment for Jackson,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
kind of made him relevant, right? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
he's become this player based on that moment.
It's
So
followed him along 10 years later. Yeah.
yeah. So if he can use that to now find success in the game, right?
Yeah.
Then it's not like we did anything directly, but indirectly we're a cause of that. So hey,
Yeah.
at that time, was I thinking that way? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Today I'm like, yeah, it was an L, right? And it
Yeah.
was I remember Jabber telling me, and it was like they were up 9-7,
Yeah.
and I'm screaming at my guys. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And Jabber's like, bro, why are you going crazy? It's a best of three, no problem. I'm like, no, man, it's 15 minutes, one game.
Yeah.
So then he's like, bro, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah. So yeah, we had lost that, but that was a big turning point for us to smarten up.
When you lose that tournament, a couple months later, our case
Yep.
is happening.
Yeah.
And Turab almost in those 2 months goes into hiding
Yeah.
and comes out as what we like to call the Gujni version.
Gajni.
Of Turab.
Yeah. Cut my hair.
Cut his hair. No more pretty boy.
Yeah.
Now it's a bad boy look. And you
Yeah.
go and take a team to this tournament that had guys like Monty, Jamil Mauji, Jaber, Khalil Ramtullah. I mean,
Conan.
you finally,
Yeah.
Conan, Imran,
Irfan.
you finally
Irfan, yeah.
have like a team now, because
Yeah.
what you brought to New York was, pieces and
Yeah.
bits,
Yeah.
but now you've got a team, and you knew that I needed to get a team.
Yeah.
In that tournament, at any point, did it seem realistic? Not making the finals, because I think, you lose that round of 16, but I know how you were. I think you always thought every tournament you're going to win.
Yeah.
But did you ever think you'd match up against Faisal in the final and have a shot at it?
No. I'll tell you, 3 weeks before that, I was at me and Faisal and I used to practice together every Thursday. I used to go to their practice, or he'd come to mine, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ali Muhammad remembers this, but we went to Faisal's house or Ali's house. I cannot remember. It was like, I don't know. I don't remember. So we went out we went out to eat after, and then we ended up at Faisal's house or Ali's house. And I remember telling Faisal, like, look, I'm just trying to win.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to feel it once, right?
Yep.
And man, I love that guy, right? He always was like, look, you got it.
Yeah.
Right. And he told me this. He's like, look, you're the only guy who I'm going to look at and say could give some of my North players a problem. Whether he meant that or not, don't matter. It gave me spirit.
Exactly.
So I remember walking into the finals that day, and Salim Dalla comes outside, and that's a moment I won't forget, right? He's like, listen, bro, you can do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then my dad comes to me, my mom, my wife.
Yep.
They're all like, look, you can do this, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I can. And bro, we started that first game, and we were down like 6-love or 7-love or something.
Right,
but in that game, something just clicked. That first game.
Yeah.
And those are, look, we saw it happen in Stanmore.
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
when a team clicks, and there's nothing you can do about it,
Yep.
right? So it was just one of them days. It things clicked, and yeah, we were able to pull that victory off. But to think that we were gonna beat him, no.
When it's in your grasp now and you start tearing in that final because it became realistic. Like, wow, we're gonna win.
Yeah.
How much after did you sit down and actually just relish the moment and go, I just potentially beat the greatest volleyball player ever?
It wasn't even for me. That moment had nothing to do with volleyball. Believe it or not, nothing, zero. Like I look, beating Faisal once doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
All right. It was a moment. Great. We were able to beat North and Faisal once. Awesome. But it was like
what you've been through.
I was just like, man, people don't know. Like, people the only reason I even wanted to do this interview was, I know that people have looked at me in one light and they haven't really gotten to know me because they judge you on those four corners, right?
100%.
Who you are. And when you're young, man, I take my son to his basketball league right now. He's 4 years old.
Yeah.
And bro won't pass the ball.
Yeah.
You use that and you transcend that to today's time. They're gonna say, wow, Abbasali, my son, is a terrible guy, right? So they haven't given, like, I never have, and I'm not that involved that I speak out that much or whatever. So it's like you get judged on the four corners, right? And it was kind of like, look, I never meant no harm. I never wanted to insult anyone. I never none of that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to prove to my parents, most importantly, that whatever I was saying at home about, like, hey, I can do this and I can do that and I can do this, that I can do it.
Yeah.
And that was my first step in that direction. I have a younger brother who, him and I are like this, we're extremely close. So for me, it was like to show him that, hey, something can be done even when it's not, when it's not possible, right? It can be done. And you know me, someone like, I've always lived with a bit of a corner attitude, right? When you throw me into a corner, I try to swing my way out of it, right? It wasn't about volleyball. It was just about, hey, it's possible, right? Like the job got done,
I talked about this in one of my interviews. If you look at all the pictures of that win against Faisal, I'm there with Malia. And I'm cheering you guys on because you guys, like I said, you guys always gave me my first shot. But at the same time, you made me believe, like, oh, I could, like, anybody could be beaten any given day. And that's the beauty of this game, is that if you work hard enough, if you really put your mind to it and you really care, like, you can win any given day. And I think for me personally, and I think for a lot of centers growing up at that time, you gave them life. You gave them a chance to like to know that you're going to tournaments. You're not just spending your money. We don't get paid to play this sport. Like, hey, newsflash, we don't get paid. We pay a lot of money at a very young age. Like, our parents are probably looking, like, my dad looked at me 1,000 times. He's like, bro, you're going to pay to get lost, to lose in the quarters. Sometimes you don't even make it. He's like, bro, what are you going, like, all the way there for? You know what I'm saying? But he would understand that I was driven, right? And you were a reason for that drive, because I was like, yo, he beat Faisal. Like, it's possible. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, thanks, man, because that was an eye opener for a lot of us.
No, I mean, I appreciate that sentiment, man. I mean, it's very flattering. And hey, if it did impact anyone, then alhamdulillah, bro.
At that point, you go and a couple months later, there's Al Wahda.
Yeah.
And Orlando shows up.
Yeah.
And they just come off a victory in 2012. You show up, you're coming off your victory. The stakes are high. The teams are probably almost like in the beginning of their peaks.
Yeah.
And you look at Orlando playing Arcades in the semis. In your mind, after you won your semis, you're probably thinking, I'm playing Orlando.
Yeah.
And you're probably like, they beat me in 2012. It's my turn to beat them. And Arcades, like Arcades always do,
they pull the upset.
Once a year, they'll pull an upset, because any given Sunday, Arcades can turn up the heat. And they get into the finals. Now, that year, a lot of people say it, we should have drug tested Shanu, because the balls
100%
were unlike any other we've ever seen.
100%.
Like, you won the first game.
Yeah.
The second game, they win 21-1.
Yep.
After he wins 20, he hits a ball between you and Jabber, I believe. that
Yeah,
just
we looked at each other.
lands.
Yeah. No, but you know, at like 13-1, I took
You
a
just
timeout, or
yeah.
11-1 or
You're
something.
like not worth it, right?
And I was like, I told these guys, I'm like, look at his sweat, bro. Like he's swinging full throttle.
Yeah.
Just rally as much as you can and let him swing himself out. Like
Yeah.
we were trying to play rope a dope, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
And hope to God that it works, because there was no way to stand with him that day.
Yeah.
Like I take pride in defending the ball.
Yeah.
And I couldn't defend his ball, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, look, let him just finish what he's doing. Right.
Yeah.
And let's finish the third game.
Yeah.
And in the third game, luckily he had gas.
Yeah.
So we got to, maximize on that.
You win that tournament in game 3. And I think that is when people thought that this team seems almost unbeatable. They played Faisal, they beat him. They played Shanu at his hottest, they beat him. Like, this is the beginning. Like, this is stars all over again, taking over the volleyball world. But it didn't really turn out that way, because in 2014, Marhaba happened, and you had a 1-game lead on Orlando in the playoffs. Orlando comes and does the Toronto sweep and ends up, winning the championship there. And then in 2015, you lose in round of 16 against challengers in best of 3 at that time.
Makeshift team, but
yeah, makeshift team. In 2015, in the RK semis, you got sick the night before. Man. You were in the hospital, right?
And we had placed first that tournament.
Yeah.
We had. I think we were like 13-1, and I don't know what happened. I had a hive breakout, and I ended up in the hospital the whole night. I remember that.
2016, you win TVC.
Yeah.
But again, Sunshine quarterfinal, a loss to New York Union. Actually, who did you lose to that day? It was me. So then that
very 1 second. Very controversial.
Abbas Rai, I love you. But yeah, very controversial. But yeah, that, and then 2016 semis, Conan gets hurt in Minnesota. Yeah. You only have Comac, so you have to play him. He's the only netty you had, and now you lose. You win the first game, but then you lose the next 2. Like, just a lot of things, unfortunate things happen.
A lot of bad luck.
A lot of injuries on your team. A lot of people in and out. It wasn't just like unfortunately just all didn't happen at once, right? Like, it was happening at different times. And then in 2017, I think you had enough. You were like, you know what? Faisal's memorial tournament is happening, and Jabir was not able to come. He was getting married.
Yeah.
And you're like, I need to win. I gotta put my best foot forward. And you took Imran Walji, and you took Banji. You won that tournament. And then you pretty much put stars back up on the map, because now people were like, okay. They took a couple-year break. They won 1, 2, this, that. But Turab's back. Like, he's swinging again. And that tournament you were swinging, and people were like, okay, he still got it. 2018 comes around. There was a walkout in TVC. Controversial walkout. Yeah. And then you come to New York. Now, in 2018, in New York, your team was hot. Like, people were just like enamored by you guys, because they were like, okay, Turab's back, Jabir's back, this team is back together. They had a couple of years, a year break, and they're coming to win. And then the round robin, you guys were dominating. You beat us. You pretty much beat everybody, right?
Yeah.
You wake up Sunday morning, and you're playing Allentown in the quarterfinal.
Yeah.
If you win that quarterfinal, you play New York.
New York. Yeah. Which is what we wanted.
Yeah, which is the perfect matchup for you, because
matchup for us.
Round robin.
Yeah.
When you woke up knowing you're playing Allentown, then potentially New York, did you at any point look too far ahead?
Yeah, for sure. We're talking about New York before we started the quarters.
Yeah.
No doubt. It was the worst mistake. You can't count out, like, we're counting out greats like Banji and Ahmad Sumar, right? These guys are, look, man, we don't give enough credit to the vets, right? And that's why I harp on the vets that I play with. And, there's vets that still play. And look, Banji and Ahmad Sumar are no joke. To be honest with you, in my humble opinion, they're still some of the best players in Allentown,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hands down. So I mean, I haven't seen them in years,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
They still are.
of course, Sammy,
They still
right?
are. Yeah. Yeah.
But these guys are like they're studs in their own right. So yeah, did
Yeah.
we look past them? Yeah, I mean, look, when the guy is telling you the day before, I didn't bring T-shirt for day 3, you're like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not taking you
Yeah.
seriously. But I think that was his tactic. You know, Ahmed's smart
100%.
like that.
100%.
And you know, we won the first game, lost the second game,
Yeah.
and in the third game we had a 5-love lead,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
right? And we blew it. And they came to play you in New York, and you guys, I mean, in the semis, and you guys whacked them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, first losing to them hurt me,
Yeah.
and then watching you whack them hurt me more.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right?
Exactly.
But
It was
yeah,
crazy to think like when we played Jaffrey's in that quarters, and we're like, we didn't even know if we're gonna make it out of that. We made it out of that, and we hear that you're losing to Allentown, and we're like, well, we were thinking, oh wow, we got to beat Stars now just to make it, and we were like, whoa, we dodged a bullet there. You, in 2018, when you lose that one, do you sit down and go, okay, these last 4 or 5 years have been tough on us? Did you ever doubt yourself? Did you ever think you couldn't do it? Did you ever think like, damn, what else do I need to do? Do I have to work harder? Like, did you think you were never going to come back to the pinnacle, to the top? Like, at any point, did you think that you were almost not finished, but not
finish is a good word.
Yeah.
After New York, I was like, okay, I can't hang no more, right? Listen, I saw Imran. I'll tell you, right? I saw you do your thing, right? I'm watching you hit. I'm like, oh man. I'm watching Imran Walji do his thing. I'm like, oh man. I'm watching Arif Ali. I'm watching MZ.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, I just placed first. We lost to the 8 seed team. What's going? I'm the issue, right? And then I saw one of the best performances I've seen. Like, look, I have about 8 to 10 performances in my lifetime that I have seen that I'm like, salute, right? One of them is Usman Lambada in New York, right? I looked at him and I'm like, damn, man, like what has happened? I'm not hanging with these guys. So and shout out to Usman, he's fantastic, and Imran and everyone else that I mentioned. But I called, so I got back to the hotel and I was thinking about what I'm gonna do. And if you remember, Salman, I don't know if you remember, I'd come downstairs and you and Hilal and a few others were giving me your 2 cents of why things have gone sideways for us, right? And I had told you, and then I went upstairs and I told my team, I said, I need one human to come and help me fix this and turn it all around. I don't know if you remember. So when I got back, and I saw anyways, when I got back to Toronto, I made a phone call to Oscar Uncle and I was like, listen, there's 2 options on the table. Either you come back or I'm putting my that's it, it's over.
Yeah,
right.
I remember you calling me and telling me I think I'm gonna hang it up.
Yeah. And I was like, because I can't do it, right? Like, I'm not gonna go and embarrass myself or ruin whatever little bit that we've done, or then put that pressure on my brother and Jabber and everyone else in between, because it wasn't fair, right? I was letting down. I'll tell you, like, a good friend of mine, Shani Kara, who was playing net at that time, he actually worked his butt off, right? And people were blaming him or blaming others, and I was the problem. I wasn't able to. It wasn't about the physical. It was about the mental, right? I was so like, oh, what is this guy gonna think? Or I'm not gonna make it here, and like I kind of messed myself up, or I looked past the team or whatever. So I was like, look, I need guidance back, right? Maybe a little bit of the a little bit of the hype got to me. I don't know, right? So I called Oscar Uncle and I was like, listen, you have a choice. You created these young guys, right? You didn't only create me. There's a group of them you put on the table. Some of them play, some of them don't play. I still play. If you want me to keep playing, I need you to come back and help me, or I'm gonna hang it up. Right. And he was like, look, I don't want to have this conversation.
Oh wow.
I'm back next week after, whatever. Okay. He's like, we're not doing no hang up nonsense, right?
Yeah.
He came back and we went back to the basics of volleyball. Right. So, I started working on things like flighting the ball again, defense, digging, so on and so forth. Right. We brought Irfan back to basics, Jabber back to basics. We were able to take Abbas and mold him into the system, and so on and so forth. Right. We picked up Sam, stud of a player. Right. We were able to find our things, and then we started, like, Shani started helping us train new netties.
Yeah.
Shani's getting older.
Yeah.
So, we were able to find Raheem and, now Swaggy and so on and so forth, right? So we've been he helped build that. And I remember he told me one thing, bro, when he came back. He's like, you got 2-3 months, go find kids
Hmm.
who want to play,
Yeah.
right? And that's exactly what we did. And yeah, he's a big part of this new chapter, right? Because that was the call that I made. Otherwise, I think we would have hung it up.
Yeah. No, you're right. So you get Oscar Uncle back. What?
Yeah.
What was that? I know you mentioned the call and you went through it all, but was that your last straw? Like almost like, or was that like your first thought? You get my point? Was it like I don't
First thought.
first thought, like I gotta call Oscar.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
When you call him, he comes back, you talk about the basics. And I think what you talk about is you became very Faisal like, jumping, kind of what I was doing, kind of what a lot of guys were doing. But then you went back, like you said, to Turab
Basic.
volley.
Yeah.
Jump, flight, float, stand, dig, all of that stuff, right? Like you became you again.
Yeah.
What made you so special? What made you so different? And that you propelled yourself to 2019, Minnesota, get to the semis, Oscar's back, and you have multiple leads on Jaffrey's, back-to-back games. You squander, I believe, a 9-love lead. You squander an 8-1 lead. What was that like? Because was that for you almost like, hey, first tournament back with Oscar, we're stepping in the right direction, we're going to be all right?
Yeah, it was for a step in the right. And honestly, man, if I really believe this, and I'm saying this very humbly, you take out the emotion of that game and whatever happened, right?
Yeah,
Everyone knows.
Yeah.
And should have never happened. I apologize about that again. But if we were to play with no emotion, and just those two teams played that day, I believe we beat them.
Yeah,
I really do.
I agree.
Because the emotion took over, right?
Yeah.
We had a 9-love lead, an 8-5 lead, whatever it may be, right? So we blew that ourselves, but I took it as a positive. All right, we can hang. Let's go.
What you talk about in your almost that break of 2013 to 2018. It's not a break because you do win in that time, but again, you're not winning majors, right? We talk about majors and then regular tournaments. You're not winning majors.
Yeah.
Why I call you the Mamba is because of that. Because you're very Kobe-like when it comes to this game. And I always said Faisal was Jordan, and you were Kobe. You were different in your own way. You were trying to be the best, but you were so passionate about the game that it almost consumed you. And when it consumed you to a point where now you weren't winning, you would do whatever it took physically. You would burn yourself out in the gym. You would go to volleyball 3-4 times a week. I remember you calling me one time and you're like, I'm playing too much volleyball. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you would be so passionate about the game that it was almost breaking you down. But that also turned because you put so much time into it that now whatever you gave volleyball was giving you back. Because now Oscar Uncle saw that in you and was like, you know what? I can go win with this kid. He saw how much time you put into it. 2019 comes around, you go to the semis, you lose, but a couple months after that, my greatest match of my career. You played Faisal, so probably not yours, but I know that it was up there. I know from, speaking to Jabber and stuff, we play in the finals.
Yeah, it's the best. It was the best version of New York Union I had seen in my entire career. We played in a lot of matchups. We've beaten you consistently. This was the first time where I was like, uh-oh. I watched you guys play in the semis against North, and I was like, they're going to be a big problem, right? And we got to play the Minnesota team with Alu and Matham.
Wasn't an easy
road.
Who took
out Jaffrey. Who took out Jaffrey. And the same Jaffreys that came to Minnesota with Akhtar and Nick and so on and so forth.
Same one,
right?
Same team,
So seeing Matham and Alu do that, and we were confident against the younger guys because we kind of saw what they were doing, so we thought that we would be able to get past that, and we did. It was a war, but we got past it. Matham and Alu both played incredible that day, and so did the whole team: Nick Nam, Freddie, Ali Oscar, Walji, and Anu. and
Yeah.
Monty, of course.
Yeah.
Shout out to Monty. Otherwise, he'll get upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was a hard matchup, man, for sure. Especially because there's always been a lot of rivalry between us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think a lot of times, we did it to ourselves. Sometimes people did it to us.
We definitely,
Whatever.
yeah. Yeah.
And getting into that situation, especially, and I got to tell you this, okay?
Hmm.
You had that game.
Yeah. I know.
You had that third game. You made the biggest mistake of your
Yeah.
life in that third game.
Yeah.
And
Jabber
I'll
won't let
never
it.
forget
Yeah. Jabber won't let me live it down. Yeah.
you. I think you looked across and you pull. You went
Oh,
like this.
yeah. Mehboob
Yeah.
Gigi. Yeah.
And Jabber pointed it out to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it in the video
I just
too. I see it in the
and I
video.
just went cold. I was
Yeah.
like, no. This little brother of mine is not doing
Yeah.
none of this. All right.
Yeah.
And yeah, the ball just connected, ended up in the right areas of the court, and we were able to just pull that out by like literally a thin hair.
To me, my volleyball career has mostly been as an underdog, has mostly been in your shadows, has mostly been pinned up against you, has mostly been, oh, what did Turab do? Can Sal do the same thing? What did Stars do? Can New York Union do the same thing? Turab's won, Sal hasn't. Like, it's always been that. And unfortunately, we talk about the negativity of this sport in the past, which I think has changed, but we were caught up in it. We had, personal issues, we had volleyball issues, and people were playing into it. We were allowing it to get to us. I played a big factor in our relationship at that time, and our rivalry at that time. I felt like it was good drama and it was a good narrative and it was fun because it fired me up and I wanted to kick your ass every single time I played you. And people knew it. And it's funny because we would play it off like it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But if United Stars played New York Union 7 a.m. in the morning, people were watching. If United Stars played New York Union 11 p.m. at night, people were watching. Not because they cared about New York Union versus United Stars. It's because they cared about Turab versus Salman. That's all they cared about. And to be honest, that 2019 final for me was 10 years in the making.
Yeah, it was the end of the chapter.
2009, you give me my first chance. 2019, I come and kick your ass. And it was like, what you did to Faisal, I'm going to do to you. Like, that was my goal. Was like how you said you needed to prove it to everybody? Yeah. I needed to prove it to everybody and prove it to you that, I could beat you, man. Like, even though I did it, like, I never really did it on that stage.
Yeah.
But again, the Mamba-ness in you was like, nah, that shit ain't gonna happen, bro. And to be honest, and I think now in retrospect, we're much older. We can look back on this. The rivalry that you and I had, I think it grew the sport of volleyball. And I'm not putting it in a magnifying lens like we were the best thing. No. There were so many things that grew the game of volleyball. Orlando Jaffrey's grew the game of volleyball. Orlando grew the game of volleyball. The front line grew the game of volleyball. Like, Kizzer grew so many things grew the game of volleyball. But as centers, Faisal was gone. Shanu was getting past his prime. Abbas Kimji left our case. Like, there were so many things happening that there were not that many centers really, JJ retired, like semi-retired. Like, people were kind of just leaving, like, and going into different phases of their lives. But you and I were there for 10 years. Yeah. Just going at it.
Yeah.
And it made me better. I've always chased you. I've always wanted to chase you. You're always number one. And I wanted to be, people would be like, even when people would talk about me at my peak, they would say, Turab's 1A and you're 1B. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't even give me like, you're both up there. They'd still tell me you were a notch, a little bit underneath him. And I think, take all the negativity aside. We let things happen that shouldn't have happened. That's whatever. We respected each other. We respected each other's game. We wanted to see each other grow. There were times that we had common enemies, so we were rooting for each other. But like, even the common enemy wasn't as bad as our relationship. Like, we were like, no, I still want you to win, T. And we were still by each other's side when we saw that the other person was down, because family, we were still family. Like, at the end of the day.
Listen, I'll tell you, just because I guess we're gonna air this here. If I wasn't older, if I wasn't, if it wasn't like, it's like, I'll go back to whether it's safe or whether it's Irfan, or whether it's Imran, or whether it's you, you're just younger than me. I ain't gonna let you beat me.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like talent and what you could do and how you played and what you've done for New York Union and so on and so forth, as a competitor, I always gave you your props.
Yeah.
Right. I always thought you're a dangerous center who can give it to anybody at any given time. Right. It's a team game. You built a great team.
Mm-hmm.
You led a team. You did great, man. Right.
Yeah.
Like, look, winning is important.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, of course.
Do I think winning is the staple of everything? No, I don't. Not anymore.
Yes.
Because you've made impact. Look, you've made an impact to your community. As you had mentioned, you don't get paid to play. Like you've done a lot of good, right? This one little blimp on your thing about not winning or playing United Stars and losing or whatever. Forget about all that, right? As an older brother, I can say that you did a fantastic job, right? And now you're on a whole new chapter in Orlando, and I'm sure you'll do a fantastic job there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, we look. I'll give you this much. You kept me on my damn toes, man.
Yeah.
Every single time. And there was many centers who kept me on my toes, but you really kept me on my toes because you're my cousin. You're the younger cousin. And I knew you wanted to beat my ass. And
100%.
I wasn't about that.
Yeah.
Right. So it was just one of them things. But no, man, kudos to you. You did your thing, man.
I think 2019 for me was like, if I beat him, my whole story, my whole narrative changes.
I agree.
Like personal narrative. New York Union, yeah, granted, back on the map. Great, good for you. You guys won a championship after 25 years. That's awesome. But for me also was like, okay, it's off my shoulder. I'm not a Carmelo Anthony. I'm not a Charles Barkley. I'm not that guy. I can win. And I was 1 point away. And like I said, bro, I wanted to beat you, but as much as I wanted to beat you, I wanted to keep you on your toes. I wanted you to look over your shoulder every single time and be like, this kid's coming. And it was making you better. Because when you were still losing, you were like, damn, Sal, like you said, oh, why is Sal like Imran Walji? Like, what's going on? Right? Like, you would look at us and be like, no, like, I'm not going to let that happen,
Yeah.
And you won. 2019, you won. And now Stars like looks like, wow, a well-oiled machine, and Conan sitting back there, and you got Raheem and Ned, and Oscar is just like the veteran piece, and Samir's fitting in. But there was a guy on that team that I want to touch on. And I said something in my last podcast that caught a little, like I got a little slack for, but I called Bilal Kaba the best player in London. And what I meant by that, and I should have probably rephrased it, maybe the best backline player in London, because you can't really compare frontline and backline players. Frontline, I think Amirli, top notch. Backline, of course, Abbasali and Kumi are great players as well. But I think Bilal Kaba takes the cake there. And that's because I saw Bilal Kaba do what he did with you. Like, to play for United Stars is very difficult. I've done it. A lot of people have done it. They don't make it out alive sometimes. Like, you got to have, like...
But, you see, I agree. No, sorry. Let me go back. I'm not going to comment on who's the best player in London. I'm going to say that I think Bilal Kaba is great. I think Amir Ali's a stud. I think Kumi, Murtaza, Abbasali, Elegance, Faz are all amazing. I think Lalji is amazing. And that's why I asked him to play on our team this year. But I think there's a lot of great players. Do I think Bilal Kaba made an even better name for himself playing with us? Yeah, you know why? The narrative around that was actually pretty cool. He had called me, said, look, I want to play. I was like, look, I don't got space.
Yeah.
So if you want, you can stand in third. And then if we need you, you'll come in. It happened to be that the first game, Irfan missed his alarm clock.
Oh, no way.
So already I'm super upset because he's not there.
Yeah.
And I know, and now I'm like texting as an older brother saying, don't drive fast. You're going to get a ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
So Bilal Kaba comes in, plays well. Second game, Oscar Uncle got hurt. So now Irfan got there, right? And Oscar Uncle got hurt. So now Bilal has to play.
Yeah.
And we put him in a position that he doesn't play.
Yeah.
And he played it amazing. So on that note, like, shout out to him. He played out of this world, right?
Yeah.
Great volleyball player, great volleyball mind. And to be honest with you, very good kid, right? Like, he's a very respectable guy. So but I'm not gonna comment on the best.
No, I knew you weren't gonna comment on that. Yeah. What I wanted to ask you pretty much was that that Bilal Kaba came into a situation where, again, it's not easy to play with stars because they're winners, right? And if you're not coming from a winning mentality, you're not gonna fit in, right?
Yeah.
And you gotta be like on that same wavelength as stars. Stars, man, when you play with them, they're a championship team. Like you gotta think differently, right? Like I told you, like you have that mentality. You guys all have it. And I think you've instilled it in your players. But for him to come from London to play third line potentially, then play in, and then play front line, and then play it at that level.
He played awesome. Yeah.
Credit
Shout
to
out
him.
to him.
And
Yeah.
as an alpha on his team, to come play with an alpha like yourself, I mean, it takes a lot to
100%.
like, you know what I'm saying?
100%.
So just credit to him. And again.
But I think because he's played for another team as well, he kind of had an idea of how it works, right? That helped him.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, he's great.
And
man.
I think he fit the system because you guys were putting him in a position to succeed.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
you guys had the right people in place, right? Like
For
Samir,
sure,
that
100%.
tournament was locked down. Jabber wasn't given a
100%.
point. Irfan,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like he felt secure.
They're fun.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. 100%.
So
Abbas played out of this world.
Abbas,
too.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Abbas
and Raheem made his name
his
that
name.
tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. Like, you know, it's like funny because people look at stars and go, man, they really don't have that front right position ever since Imran Kermally left. And you are funneling people in and out. But those people are like fitting in well because Star's system works.
The system is made already, right? It's just plug and play. But we have found that. But we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You win that tournament. You go. The pandemic hits. 2020. We're looking forward to it. People were saying Stars New York again in 2020 was going to be a thing. Couple years go by. We get a couple years older, and our prime starts to kind of leave us. And so we think. But then 2022, Stanmore holds a tournament, and Turab and United Stars are 16-1 or something like that in the round robin. And that was like, this guy didn't miss a beat. It's been 3 years. He worked his tail off. In those 3 years, you would be sending me all these snaps of you working on. I'd be like, this guy's crazy. And it worked. It showed. Like you were dominant again in away from Toronto with another player, front right, Maitham Medu doesn't play there, fit the system, right?
He played awesome, yeah.
Right, and he fit the system, like it made it work. Yeah. Monty and net with Raheem, like you had all the pieces.
Yeah.
And you come in on a Sunday at 3 p.m. finally because you're the first seed to play Stanmore, who I think has played like 18 games at that point. And you can tell, you know, it affected you guys.
Yeah,
in a way that it, you know, you guys were slow to start, caught fire in that second game, and then the third game was 10-all for it was 1-all for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Look, some things are just meant to be, right? And you know, I personally didn't know how good Stanmore was until I saw them in Al Wilaya this time, right? This time I was like, wow, they're a great team, right? Yeah. Great unit. I love their chant 100%. Before they play. I think it's like super dope. Yeah. But they're a great unit, you know, and honestly, what I really like, and I give them this, you know, they've been humble in victory. And, you know, I really mess with that at this stage in my life and where I'm in my volleyball career, you know, I like that. So, you know, I give them all the props in the world. They played out of their socks. You know, it was their night, right? Mm-hmm. And like I said before, probably an hour ago, is everybody has that night or that moment. And, you know, if it's your moment, it's your moment. There's nothing coming in your way. And it was their moment. I think Stanmore United Stars is a very good matchup.
Yeah.
It's a very good game. You don't know what you're going to get. Yeah. And we'll see. You know, I think that day was their day. It was a shell shock for me because we were very confident.
Yeah.
You know, we did. I do believe that, you know, being cold in the morning was a bit of an effect. I think the coldness died out after the first game. So game 3 had nothing to do with having a bye.
Yeah.
And it was their night and they played out of their socks. And I'll tell you, a player who needs to get his props for that semifinals game, because the Blues are going to get their props, right? Yep. Kumi is Kumi. He's the man. He's going to get his props. He said, I have big balls. I say he has big balls. Yeah. You know, he has that, right?
Yeah.
You know, I was very flattered when Abbasli said I'm the guy who riles him on, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of like, all right, I'm gonna take it, no problem.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
Yeah. But I tell you, Faz and Elegance,
100%.
man, first of all, Faz is, man, he's the sweetest guy, and he played out of this world.
Yeah,
Okay,
100%.
but Elegance, man. See what happened is in the round robin, Elegance didn't play, so we had a game plan,
Yeah,
which flip. Like couldn't believe I didn't catch it. But when I'm trying to go to a certain position, and there's this anchor cutting everything. I thought I'm playing against Imran Jivraj in that moment. You know. So shout out to Elegance. I do believe he was a big reason of why they won that matchup.
100%, 100%.
And you know why they ended up winning the tournament.
And to be honest, Elegance is a guy who I think deserves a lot more credit than he gets in terms of changing his position for what the team needs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, you're talking about selfless. That's selfless, right?
That's
so
100%.
Yeah,
selfless.
you give him that, right?
You take that loss in the chin,
Yeah.
and you don't know when the next tournament's going to be. You hear that it's going to be Orlando. You find out it's Orlando. You're gearing up for Orlando, and Edmonton comes. And you take Banff boys to Edmonton.
Yeah.
And kind of just, knock the rust off a little bit, kind of keep you in shape for the next tournament. You kind of, I don't want to say walk through that tournament because a lot of teams, did play very well. Minnesota, good fight. But, your swing was there. Like, you were feeling it. Like, you can tell, like it was a good tune-up for you guys.
Yeah.
And Irfan wins MVP, well-deserved. Jabir plays front right. I mean, for all, that's why I said in my last podcast, like, if we're talking about GOAT of defense now, he's up there. Like, Hussein Gigi, no doubt about it. Long term, like, he's done so much in longevity, in terms of longevity.
And Oscar,
And Oscar Uncle.
Yeah.
But I think you look at now and what you just look at Jabir and go, he's 37, 38 years old and doing these things. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. No, he's just listen.
Like, it's
Jabir,
nuts, man.
Jabir unfortunately doesn't get, for me, I think, there is a parallel between him and Kumi for sure, right? They're both great. Jabir has what he has, Kumi has what he has, no doubt. But Jabir, man, he's my guy, right? Like, ride or die, no matter what, right? I just turn to him, and whether we're losing or we're winning, I know he got me, right? And then Irfan getting MVP, that was great, man, because I feel like he's always been, I'm his older brother, right? And he's always there supporting me. And then, other front centers get recognition, right? And he's gotten his, but he deserves more because
100%.
there is no, this is the reality. There's no Turab without Irfan. And whether that is a good or a bad, doesn't matter. I can't play without him. He's my guy, right? So, he got his. But I'll tell you, the Banff Boys tournament was awesome. I got to play with my brother MZ, Arif Ali, JJ, that we had such a good vibe. Maz, right? Maz is a big team guy, huh? 100%. I learned that this time. He's a big 100%. Team guy. JJ too. But key notes from that is, the change, the evolution. I never saw myself ever playing with any other team or any players from Orlando, but it was amazing that I did because I got to meet Hassan Manekia, right? When you see him play, you're like, wow, this guy's slick. He's so good. He's handsome kid. So you think, he's a bit of a, but man, such a nice guy, right? And then who I like to call the human cheat code, in Imran Jivraj, right? He was just one of the most fun guys I've ever played with. Like, he so respectful, and he just he was awesome. So anyways, that was a great tournament for me to play. And then Ali Rashid got to play in that tournament too, right?
And he played amazing.
Because when Hassan got hurt in the second game of the semis, he came to life, man.
Stepped up.
But it was really fun.
Ali Raza Manekia is smiling cheek to cheek right now to hearing you talk about Hassan like that. You Orlando's coming up, and you have some additions to your team, and we said we touch on that because that front right has been almost like we said a revolving door, but you've had someone in the works coming up your system, right? And I think we saw some of him in Edmonton. And I think now may be the time, him alongside some other additions, to maybe get his shot. What can you tell me about the two guys you're bringing to fill that void?
So, most people know Mohamed. Mohamed started playing with us about 3-4 years ago. This will be his first indoor tournament at a high level, inshallah. And great kid, fantastic attitude, very skillful player. We saw it in Edmonton. We've seen it outdoors. We've seen it everywhere. He's adapting to the front right position. He's become one of us, right? So we have him, and then we have Lalji as well from Birmingham. Very underrated player. I think he's fantastic. I'm looking forward to playing with him. He's actually Khalil Remtullah's cousin. So I've seen him grow up too, because he's come to Toronto so much.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have him with us. And then Swaggy's playing in net with Raheem.
Yeah, Swaggy's
So
back. Like
that's gonna be fun as well. So yeah,
that,
it's a good team. Everything else is the same.
Abbas Haidalaji, always one of the prettiest players in London, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
has
yeah,
has
yeah,
that
yeah. The little pop in his step.
that
Yeah,
Turabness I like to call, right? Because Turab's all about Nakra.
yeah. Thank you.
The that sounds like a team that is looking to win, and I'm assuming that's what your mindset is this time, is just win, right? Because I talked about this in my podcast last time. With Stars, they're not coming to let's teach this kid how to play, or it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
now it's win 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 win. Like we're coming.
Yeah, I mean, any tournament, whether we lose or we win. Sorry, whether we lose in the quarters or semis or for me personally, in my mind, it's always now until I stop playing, it's win or bust.
Yep.
Right. So,
Yep.
and most times we're gonna bust. Right. Stanmore was win or bust.
Yeah.
Right. And for about 3 days, it looked like we were gonna win in Stanmore, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And even going into here, there's some very good teams. You got Stanmore as the reigning champs coming in. You got Orlando. You're an addition. You guys I don't know what style format you guys are playing, what you're doing, but you guys have a fantastic team.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us, we have a good team, right? Oh, I'll tell you, North. Usman's back.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's gonna be a fantastic team. And then you got Minnesota, who is, I just played against them at the Bam Boys
They're
tournament.
the dark horse, in my opinion, man.
Yeah, and Imran Walji and Matham, man, and
Yep.
Monty, that combination that got going on is something else, man.
To me, that's the new New York Union, man. Like they can just knock on your door any day and just take you up.
100. And I'll tell you what, you have a very good New York Union was a very offensive team.
Yeah.
Right. I feel that Minnesota is now finding that mix between offense and defense.
Yes, exactly.
They're solid, right? So
exactly.
And there's no bias. My wife has not paid me to say this. This is truly what I believe.
I think in the last 3 years, post-pandemic, Gujni version of Turab left. The hair came back. I remember you calling me in the pandemic, telling me, "Yo, I gotta ask you a question." I said, "What's up?" You said, "Yo, how do you comb your hair?" And I'm like, "What?" And you're like,
I asked you what comb.
Yeah, what comb? Yeah. And I'm like, "What's happening?" And you're like, "Yeah, bro, I'm going back." And I'm like, "That's the greatest decision I've ever heard." I said, "Yo, our fathers have been bald, and you're choosing to become bald while you still have hair."
Yeah.
And I think what that also showcased was like, bad boy look went away, good guy came out. And I think for us, what we talked about during the pandemic was positivity, was changing the way this game was looked at, because there was so much negative influence in it. There was so many things happening in this game that were putting people down instead of bringing them up. This podcast is all about, I talk about elevating the game. It's all about bringing people up. It's all about putting spotlight in positive ways. And I think you and I, alongside other people, I've talked to Arfli about this. I've talked to Hilal about this. I've talked to so many people about this. It is our duty to grow this game now in a more positive life, because we get a reset. When in volleyball do you get 3 years to be like, okay, let's reset? And we got a chance to do that. And I think the mutual respect between all of us, grew even more. Like you said, when you're farther away, the heart grows fonder. We wanted to be in each other's presence again. We wanted to admire each other. And Stanmore was all about that. I saw you talking to a bunch of kids, right? Just like, they wanted to learn the game from you. They wanted to see what your thought was on this and that. And you were so receptive of that. And I think that only helps us grow. We've had the most views on games, the most people listening to this podcast all around the world. People are so into it because we're taking out the toxic nature, or bringing in the positivity. And I think you were a big piece of that. And I think that, the look helps, of course. You're very much more approachable. But we made it a point that we can't let the game affect the kids like how it used to. You talk about that story, anxiety. We talk about Nasiha, right? Like for myself, I can talk about myself, but anxiety in this game, my anxiety stemmed from this game. Like I felt like I had to live up to a certain expectation. And I actually did have an anxiety issue that I was dealing with throughout my volleyball career that I was only able to get past in 20
which I think a lot of people do. And it's like, it's life, a lot of people met me in Stanmore and they're like, you're smiling.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're laughing and playing. Right. I got to mend a lot of relationships. Right. just people I didn't speak to or hadn't spoken to in a while.
Yeah.
The 2-3 years off just put things in perspective. I have a 8-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get I have a 4-year-old son. I get the pleasure of being with my grandma more, right?
Yeah.
My brother and I got to work out every day together and get tighter. Me and Jabber, we work together. Irfan, Jabber and I, we work together, so we were always together. My wife and I, my dad, and it just put things in perspective. Look, winning and losing is immaterial. That's the whole point of this, right? The whole point, like when I started volleyball when I was 11 years old, it wasn't to win tournaments. It
Yeah.
was just to play.
Yeah.
So I kind of went back to that,
Yeah.
right? What happened in Minnesota, like I never wanted to be a part of anything like that again.
100%.
Am I saying that, look, there will never be an argument? No, it's a sport. It's gonna happen,
Sport.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I think taunting at the net is toxic? Look, I'm in a different opinion than you are, right? I don't believe in I think gamemanship
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
game is okay,
Yeah.
but I do believe that the aftermath, the talking about someone or putting them down or whatever, right? Like I really enjoy, like right now I'm having the most fun because we have so many young guys playing in
100%.
our own team and seeing other kids come up and looking at the centers who are now evolving and you know um and I just see humble people who are coming out of the woodworks, right? Who you never thought would be great
100%.
people, right?
Yeah.
So I think yeah, for sure. I wanted to make an effective change, just to kind of let people know that look, I'm not a volleyball player, right? I'm a human,
And then I'm a volleyball player. Yeah.
and then I no, I'm yeah, no, I'm a
I'm
human.
a human who plays volleyball. Yeah.
But before all that, I'm a son, a brother, a husband, a
Yeah.
father,
Yeah.
right? And everything else is secondary. I think we get lost in the sauce because we've seen others get lost in the sauce, right? So
Yep.
it's like, hey, I'm tapped out of the sauce. I don't want to do this no more, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be a part of the negative barazas or whatever, right? I'm
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
I feel like we can't be putting our hand in a huddle and saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and then
100%. 100%.
acting like fools, right? So
Yeah.
that was the mindset, and I'm happy that people were able to see a different light of United Stars and myself in Stanmore, and I hope we can continue on that over the next little bit, however long is left, right?
I think it's our duty as veterans now to do that. I think we've started to, at least it's
You're a veteran. I'm still spring chicken, bro.
Yeah. Like we've been playing for 10 plus years, right? And in the NBA that constitutes as a veteran. So we're in that position now to make a change. We don't want the game to be where it was because it was toxic. It was getting to a point where we were happy if somebody failed. We should be happy if somebody succeeds. Just the same way you talked about Stanmore, the same way we talked, like we're happy for one another. Finally, like, it's just beautiful to see the brotherhood, right? But at the same token, I feel like it is our duty to do that. And I think we're starting to make that effective change. I also think that, the game now is so much more attractive to youth. And that's why it's growing. We have 18 teams at this tournament, 17 teams. I'm so attracted to youth now. And we have so many youth teams coming to this tournament. I think like, at the end of the day, it's our duty to bring those youth in. And I think we're doing a good job at that. Going back to what I was talking about with the anxiety, I've talked to you about this, right? Like it's not that I had anxiety because of the sport. It's that I would look to the sport to get rid of my anxiety. And instead it was just adding on to it. And I've talked to, ever since I've opened up about that, so many people have come to me. There's so many people in this game that go through that all the time. They're facing the same thing, the anxiety. They come to this game to get rid of it, but unfortunately it only adds on to it. And it's our duty to have this place where you can come and get rid of all that. Like it's a brotherhood at the end of the day. It's a family.
Sure. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on one thing, and I think that this is something that you and I can relate with, and we've come up in an era where it was tough for us to make our mark. We've had to jump through a lot of hoops and a lot of obstacles. A lot of centers are coming up in the game today where we've made the landscape a little bit easier for them, right? Like they can come up and do things now because of the ability, the road that we've paved. Talk about that for me, the come up and what centers today need to do to make their mark.
I mean, the game's tough, man. The game is I saw something. I think Abbas Kimji posted it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years ago. It was Sammy's marhum father,
Yes.
Uncle Mohirji.
Yeah.
He says, this game, sometimes it wants you, sometimes it doesn't want you, right?
Yeah.
And I think for all the young guys, as long as they understand that, they'll be successful, right? It's not, you could be the best or whatever. When it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. You know, your hands just don't sit that day.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I went through it last Friday at practice, right? I go to practice, I'm all hyped to play, and my hands are slipping, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
part of the game. When it doesn't want you, it doesn't want you. But you know, a lot of the young guys who, yeah, I mean, look, positive mindset and just you know, stay grounded and understand one win will come after 20, 30 losses. You know, who knows, right? Like it'll come, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Or maybe it'll never come. But it's just part of that's how it is. It's the grind, right? It's the grind. Like it's just
there's a lot more people who have never won than people who have won.
exactly. Um, and to be honest, you know, when somebody does my interview, I'll explain that winning isn't necessarily winning that trophy. It's winning the hearts of the peers, winning the hearts of the kids that are watching you, you know, the crowd, winning you know, your family's heart, seeing them, you know, they watching you grind and getting to the pinnacle of this game for them is just they're proud of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go into rapid fire, and then we'll end with that. First thing that comes to your mind, and of course, you know, a sentence is fine. You don't have to give me a word, but a sentence is fine. Best defender you've ever faced?
Best defender I've ever faced?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna mention anyone from my team, okay?
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Because just to make it a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Best defender I've ever faced. Doesn't matter, back line, front line, right?
Doesn't matter.
KJ, hands down.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Best game of your career?
The game against Marhum Faisal.
Yep, 100%. Your favorite championship?
The first one.
The hardest loss you've ever had to endure?
I would say 2018 against Allentown United.
Yeah, I can see that. Who in the volleyball world gets you to get up and play the most? Who has it been in your career or now or whenever?
No particular player. Teams, yeah, there's a lot of teams. Like I mean, Orlando, I'm right. You know, I can't wait. Like it's a game, right?
Yeah.
And they've been like a kryptonite for us, right? Like they've beaten us more than we've beaten them.
Yeah.
So that's them, and then now Stanmore, right? Obviously.
Right.
I mean, look, every like it's more teams, not any individual per se. To be honest with you, not anymore. Like yeah, back in the day, like I'd get up like to go play Faisal, like that was something, right? But yeah, you know, even like the rivalry with you got me going. You know, I love playing against like my friends. Like when I play against, you know, whoever, Imran Walji, Arif Ali, Osman, like any of these guys, right? Like you know, these are people anyone that I respect as a player, I can get up for because it's a noble play, it's a noble game.
Fair enough. The best netty in the game today?
There's honestly solid. It's not that I'm backing away from the question. I got no reason to back away, but it's just too many. Like I can't
give me three.
Okay, so
no particular order.
I'm gonna say here. I'll give you more than three, okay? Because I just can't pinpoint to three. Right? I'm gonna say that Safe, Hassan, Maneke, and Mikal are all there. All three great netties. I'm gonna say Monty. Of course, I'm gonna ride with Raheem and Swaggy. Like these are my netties, right? The guy, the netty from Stanmore. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name at the moment, but he's amazing. Like there's just too many, bro. Like if I miss anyone, it is what it is. But there's just too many. They all like, you know, when someone says who's a better netty, right? Like they're all great, right? Like for me, one of the best netties, if you get to marvel and watch play, is Shami, because he can go from end to end by himself. But his setting style is different, but he's great on his own, right? And then of course, Adil's a good netty too.
Yeah. Beside yourself, the top three centers in the game today? No particular order. You can just give me three. Because for me, I'll just be honest with you before you continue. This is probably the only time you're ever going to hear this. I think you're one, and I think the number two is just far behind. Because you have put together a resume that is that includes longevity, that includes a complete package. It's offense, it's defense, it's composure, it's mental, it's all of it. It's the grind, it's the lion in you. So that's my take on it. But take yourself out of it. Give me three.
I appreciate you for saying that. Trust me, it means a lot. So for me, look, in no particular order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, but back center, like they don't play any other position but back center.
Yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't mean focal point, right?
Yeah.
Lambada, Imran Walji, and I'll tell you something. I'm the last one I can't get to right now because I haven't seen. I'm just thinking like if you consider Abasali, Stanmore back center, if you consider Arif Ali, like I'll tell you up in who would have been. You just he stopped playing for a little bit. MZ would have been like he was a gamer.
Yeah.
You right? You've moved your positions now, but I can't come up with a third per se. I'll throw in Alu there, right? But I do believe that he just has to prove it once, and then he's got it, right? But for me, Lambada and Imran Walji are pretty top notch. I don't know if I'm missing anyone. Can you remind me of anyone?
No, you pretty much knocked them all out. Yeah.
I can't really get anyone.
Yeah,
but
that's really it. That's really it right now. The back center game is thin, thinner than it used to be.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of centers. Look, if you talk about come up centers, I'm telling you,
come up centers. There's so many.
And then I'll lose in that between stage from come up and solidifying, right? So there's a few, right? But these are two that really stick out to my mind.
Getting a point off a third ball or putting a center's third ball in net. What's your favorite?
That's a good question. Putting a center's third ball in net.
Let's talk about that for a second. A gift from God that not many people have. It's been patented now. It was a thing up recently where you've been doing it your whole career, but it's what solidifies you and differentiates you and makes you who you are. I think everyone has a patent thing, right? And your patent thing is putting that ball in net, and it's not just putting the ball in net. It's like having it just stay there.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to watch. And I think that it's always going to be something that not many people have, and people try all the time. I see it. I tried it. So many people try it. They want to do it, right? It's not easy. Where did that come from, and when did you just start perfecting that?
I don't know, man. It just happened. But to be honest with you, bro, in Stanmore, it got to my head, this whole digging in the net, because I tried doing it in the third game, bro, and it like went under. And Irfan turned around to me, and Irfan's like, "Bro, stop listening to everybody. Stop trying to dig everything in the net." But no, it started like very early on, right? I was doing it from before. I had to figure out ways to capitalize for myself to get offense back, right? Yeah. So it's a big thing that's helped me against different players. Yeah.
It is. Last one. What do you hate the most? What would you hate more? Faisal takes a point off you, Marhum, or I take a point off you?
Oh, you, hands down.
Man, me too. I hate when you take points off me.
Hands down. When Faisal did it, I was kind of like,
it's supposed to happen.
It's supposed to happen. Yeah.
GOAT.
About like what in the sport?
Yeah.
Oh, Faisal. Like when I heard one of your interviews, and there was like a comparison of like, is this guy the GOAT, or is this guy the GOAT, or is this guy there's no GOAT. There's one GOAT. Unfortunately he's not with us anymore. I had the privilege, and I'm telling every young soul or anybody who hasn't seen him play or didn't get to know him or hasn't played with him or whatever, whether it's Usman, whether it's Imran, it doesn't matter who comes. It doesn't matter. Kizzer, doesn't matter. There will never be another Faisal. There's nobody.
100 million %.
And I just want to clarify. There's nobody like him from the neck up or the neck down.
Yep.
Nobody. He was the best, and I think that's a once in a lifetime player that we will ever see.
I know, in your heart of heart, you've always wanted to be the GOAT. Always, from when you were young. It was your aspiration. Yeah. Obviously, you went toe-to-toe with Faisal a couple of times, but he passed. After he passed, did it almost feel like you were chasing a ghost?
You know, I lost. Listen, I'll tell you. You know, we talked about those down years.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, I had no drive.
Yeah.
Right? Like Faisal kept practice. Like Faisal made everything just. He was just that unbelievable, right? Like
Yeah.
you know, it's like you're reaching for like. There's never a point in time with Faisal that you climbed up the stairs. Every time
Yeah.
you get up that stair, he slaps you right back and you go down. So there was something to climb for. When Faisal unfortunately passed away, you know, God bless his soul. There was nothing for me personally. Like I wasn't chasing no one. There was nobody who I looked at and was mesmerized, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I saw Lambada in Orlando in
And it got
2018.
you up. Yeah.
Sorry, in New York in 2018. I was like, okay, there is so much talent out there. And then I saw Imran, you know, in you and whoever. But yeah, I think I was chasing. Look, I even let's be honest, even when Faisal was around, right?
Mhm.
He was here, and the rest of us were here,
Yeah.
right? So just getting to here was like a achievement.
Yeah.
And you know when he passed, yeah, but he's by far the GOAT.
What does Turab want at the end of his career? Want his legacy to be?
I want to be I like legacy in the sport, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want whoever whenever you know there's some vets that you know we talk about, and I'm not gonna mention no names, but first of all, they stayed, you know, at one point they stayed in the game for too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of ruined their legacy in a way,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, just particular people who, you know, were just so good and you know maybe they didn't get the respect from the young guys that they deserved later on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to be in that situation, right? But if I was to talk about legacy, the only thing I want to be remembered as is a person who was down to play any
Mhm.
day, anywhere, anytime, and no excuses. Just you know, we whatever it is, right? I'm you know that's about it. That I was as you would say I was a gamer.
Yeah. Parting words, message for the kids who are coming up. Anything you want to say before we end the interview?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll just sum up everything that I try to touch on. I don't do this ever, so I mean maybe I
Yeah,
didn't
this
do a good
could be the
job,
last
maybe I
time.
did.
This could be the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole point is, you know, the game is a blessing because it keeps guys away from, you know, things on a Friday night, you
Yep.
know, the staple night, right?
Yep.
Saturday, Sunday morning, whatever it is, right? A
Yep.
weekday.
Yeah.
Just, you know, just remember that the game cannot go beyond your teachings. Like your moral compass must stay in line. And
100%.
if you're, you know, and volleyball is just like life.
Yep.
Do good, good will come. Do bad, bad will come, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, the only thing I can tell any young guy is, you know, don't play for people's approval. That's all. Don't pay
Yeah.
for people's approval because
Yeah.
that's where all the toxicity starts, right?
100%.
Play to enjoy the game, love the game, respect your team. And one thing I gotta just say, one last thing is I hate my biggest pet peeve in volleyball today
Mhm.
is when someone says that we're gonna go play Orlando Union versus Thurab.
Rob. Yep.
This is not. I I cannot explain to you how irritating it is because it's a team game, and I have shown you time and time again that
Yep.
I am useless without a team.
100%.
And with the team, I can do some pretty cool things.
Yeah.
But it's United Stars, and after me, there will be somebody else.
Yep.
We're not gonna at that time say it's Jeffries or you know New York or
Yeah. Yeah.
Orlando against you know it's so those are my that's one thing I wanted to throw out there is that you know I think there has to be respect on the club's name. I'm
100%.
a player of the club. I'm an employee to the club.
No doubt about it. And I think volleyball is a game where you're a product of your environment,
Yeah.
and the guys around you make you who you are. You can have flipped a lot of centers around in our heyday, and things could have been different. So you know what? No, that's not a shot at you or myself or Imran Walji or anybody. It is the fact that you are only as good as your team is. Um, Thank you so much, man. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Long time coming.
Yeah, it was
Almost
cool.
2.5 hours now. It was great. It was wonderful. I don't even think you knew it was 2.5 hours.
I didn't.
And I'm glad that you came on, and I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to what the future holds. But I think there's one more chapter in our rivalry. I just think there's one more chapter. But
Really?
yeah, I think so. I think there's still one more chapter. But maybe you've
Now,
closed the books. Maybe you've closed the books. But I'm trying to reopen it.
yeah, but
And
I don't know how I'm gonna get to you behind him run. It's gonna be
yeah,
very tough.
that's a very good point. That's why I'm trying to open another chapter where, you know what I'm saying, like I can't get hit. But you never know, man. We're still young, still in our primes. Maybe one day we'll get to lace it up against each other again. You never know.
Sure, bro. And you know, you've done a fantastic job, and I'm sure everybody will agree to this. Like what you did in Stanmore, starting the interview process. I don't know which tournament, but you started it.
Yeah.
What you did in Stanmore, the commentary, the positive energy you put out there. You know, no matter what anyone says, you know, you're gonna have the good and bad from all types of people, right?
Yeah.
Just keep it going because there's a lot of young guys who are gonna watch your interview, the interviews that you have with great players or great
Yeah.
people, and they'll catch something from it, and you don't know how long that goes, you know.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
what
man.
you're doing, what you've done is great, and I'm sure that your family is being supportive of it.
Yeah.
'Cause it's pretty tough. Like Malia's walked down the stairs 3 times, gone like this, right? So,
Yeah. Thank
uh,
you, man. I appreciate it. I really
I
appreciate it.
got you, bro.
I
Thank you
appreciate your
for
support.
yeah, and thank you for bringing me on. I appreciate you, bro.
Of course, of course. Thank you, man. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, this is out in a couple of days. Next week, Faz and Elegance. So
Okay.
it's gonna be a good one. Turab mentioned them. It's gonna be great. Thank you all again for tuning in, and I'm excited for what the future holds. Thanks again, Turab. I'll see you on in a couple of weeks.
You got it, brother.
Thanks,
Appreciate
brother.
you.
Take
Take
care.
care.